Chapter 401. At this moment, Qin Wenin was extremely depressed. He had only known Zhong Qian for a short period of time, but from Zhong Qian's point of view, he had become someone hired by the Zhong clan and wanted to deal with him. How ridiculous! Glancing at Zhong Qian, Qin Wenin only saw Zhong Qian slamming his palms out as a resplendent sword light flashed. Numerous terrifying swords floated in front of him as he spoke to Qin Wenin. Brother Qin, this matter has nothing to do with you. You should leave first, they won't dare to do anything to me. You want to leave? Do you think you can? The female in the middle snorted coldly as a sharp sword appeared in her hands. The three major powers of the Sword Reverence City were all sword-based cultivators. Qin Wenin coldly snorted in his heart as a sharp intent bore down on him. The cultivation bases of these three were at the 9th level of Yuanfu, not bad. From this, one could see how powerful the three major powers of the Sword Reverence City were. However, 3 9th-level Yuanfu cultivators were nothing in front of him. Sir, it's best if you move your sword away. Qin Wenin glanced at the female as he coldly replied, This is my first time here in the Sword Reverence City, I'm not willing to fight with others. That female didn't seem to appreciate his kindness. She coldly snorted as killing intent gushed forth from the center of her brows. Since you were invited here by the Zhong clan, you should know the rules. Do you think pretending to be a beginner swordsman to deceive others is of any use? Since you want to participate in this, you better be prepared to die. Lin Yan, how dare you be so rude and unreasonable? Zhong Qian's sword-type astral soul erupted forth as he soared up into the air, his battle intent radiating forth. I'd rather kill wrongly than let you off. Lin Yan's voice was filled with coldness. Do you think there's no one in my Zhong clan? A cold snort drifted over from afar. Numerous beams of sword light whistled through the air as several people appeared beside Zhong Qian, coldly staring at the three from the Li clan. Yana. At this moment, another voice drifted over. Everyone raised their heads as their expressions changed. They saw a beam of light flashing past in the distance. It was a man who seemed to be in his 30s. His countenance was like lightning and he was extraordinarily handsome, exuding a carefree aura. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, standing on top of a sword, causing others to look up to him. Li ran. The countenances of those from the Zhong clan grew incredibly unsightly when they saw this person. This Li Ran had an extraordinary status in the Li clan. He was now 30 years old and had already condensed his astral dipper, stepping into the heavenly dipper realm. His combat prowess was extremely terrifying, and he could be considered as one of the most outstanding characters of the younger generation in the Sword Reverence City. His sword was as swift as lightning, killing without spilling blood. Not long after, the three transcendent powers of the Sword Reverence City would be vying for the 10-year mining rights of a sword range. This was an extremely important matter, and the three transcendent powers were all in a state of mutual hostility. This was especially so for those youths who had the potential to become the contenders for the sword range. Hence, when the Li clan saw Zhong Qian and Qin Wenin together, they all wanted to deal with Qin Wenin. Li Ran's sharp gaze swept across the crowd before landing on Qin Wenin. His gaze was so sharp that it felt as though it could penetrate through Qin Wentian's body. However, Li Ran merely glanced at him indifferently, not paying too much attention to him. He then turned to Lin Yan and asked, Nyan, what's going on? This man is a sword cultivator who cultivated at the Sword Reverence Cliff. So it turns out that he doesn't live up to his reputation. He's originally proficient in the sword and was invited by the Zhong clan to help out. Lin Yan calmly replied. Li Ran's gaze swept over to Qin Wenin as he emotionlessly stated, I won't bully you. Fight against Lin Yan, and if you win, I will let you leave. And if I lose? Qin Wentian's countenance was calm as he stared at Li Ran. Li Ran had just broken through to the heavenly dipper realm, the same level as him. On the battle platform in the future, when you represent the Zhong clan to battle, if you lose, you will die. Since that's the case, if you lose today, you should know the consequences. Li Ran casually spoke, as though he was talking about an insignificant matter. Qin Wentian laughed. If he won, he would leave. If he lost, he would die? Flicking his sleeves, Qin Wenyan took a step forward, preparing to make his move. Li Ran, you've gone too far. At this moment, Zhong Qian's voice rang out. A ruthless glint flickered in his eyes, and with an intention of his will, a resplendent little sword appeared in front of him. This little sword hummed as an intense sword intent filled the entire space. This sword was gifted to me by an elder of my clan. If you insist on forcing my hand, I will definitely kill Lin Yan. Zhong Qian's countenance turned cold, as a cold light flickered in his eyes. Lin Yan's countenance changed. She could feel the sword locking onto her, and her countenance grew incredibly unsightly. She retreated, only to see the little sword exploding forth, hovering in front of Lin Yan as it hummed unceasingly. If I kill you, you won't be able to escape. Zhong Qian's voice was laced with an intense threat. If you kill her, all of you will die. Li Ran took a step forth, and in an instant, the entire space was enveloped by a towering sword might. Their bodies felt as though they were about to be minced into pieces. This was the terrifying aura of a second-level mandate of swords. In a single breath, I can take her life. Zhong Qian's voice was ice-cold. After which, he turned to Qin Wenyan and spoke, "Brother Qin, let's go." Qin Wenyan initially wanted to act himself, but when he saw how sincere Zhong Qian was, he didn't want Zhong Qian to attract trouble. Hence, he refrained from acting. Right now, his attitude was different from the past. Li Ran and the others before him weren't even worth a mention. Killing them or not was only a matter of a single thought. These people weren't even qualified to make him angry. Nodding his head, Qin Wenyan retreated together with Zhong Qian. That little sword was still humming, locking onto Lin Yan, causing her countenance to turn pale. After a long time, when Zhong Qian's silhouettes disappeared, the little sword shot back, whistling through the air. If I meet these people again, I will definitely kill them. Lin Yan's countenance turned ice-cold. There will be a chance soon. Why are you in such a hurry? Li Ran calmly replied. After which, the group of them departed. At this moment, Qin Wenyan followed Zhong Qian back to the Zhong clan. Zhong Qian shook his head with a bitter smile on his face. What a close shave today. That Li Ran's combat prowess is extremely high. He can be considered one of the elites of the younger generation and has already broken through to Heavenly Dipper. If it wasn't for my life-reaping little sword, I would have been in grave danger today. Brother Qin, please forgive me. It's a small matter. Qin Wenyan casually replied. Brother Qin is magnanimous. Zhong Qian laughed. This matter was caused by the sword range. In the depths of the Reverend Sword Cliff, there's an ancient demon sword. It's rumored that this sword descended from the heavens, and there's also a legend that said that during a great war in ancient times, the Reverend Sword Cliff was cleaved apart by this sword. Even now, this sword is still at the bottom of the cliff, absorbing the demonic light from the 9 heavenly layers. Beside this sword, a sword range has been formed, and powerful swords of stone demons can be found. There's actually such a miraculous thing. A sharp light flickered in Qin Wenyan's eyes. He had personally witnessed how terrifying the Reverend Sword Cliff was. A single sword cleaved apart the earth. How terrifying would it be if it was formed by the sword Zhong Qian was talking about? This sword range has produced many famous swords, hence, it's a place where the 3 major powers of the Sword Reverend City are fighting over. Every 10 years, the 3 major powers would choose 3 participants to fight to determine the rights to mine the sword range for the next 10 years. They thought that Brother Qin was someone I invited to help out, hence, they wanted to deal with Brother Qin. Zhong Qian slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wenyan to nod his head lightly. So this was the case, the 3 major powers could borrow the strength of outsiders. No wonder they were so sensitive, wanting to kill any outsiders they met. The experts of the 3 major powers are as many as the clouds. Why didn't anyone seize the demon sword? Qin Wenyan asked in bewilderment. Zhong Qian shook his head as a bitter smile appeared on his face. This sword is too demonic. It's able to absorb the blood of humans. In ancient times, there were people who wanted to seize it, but the moment they touched it, their blood would be sucked dry. It's too terrifying, and as time passed, no one dared to touch it. If that's the case, it really is the demon sword. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. There's something even more demonic. Every year, the sword would let out a mournful wail as though it had no master. Every time it wailed, demonic constellations would appear in the 9 heavens, resembling dragons and phoenixes. The roars of dragons and the cries of phoenixes would shake the heavens and earth, incomparably mystical. Also, the swords from the sword range are all demon swords, shaped like demons and able to absorb the astral energy of the demonic constellations, allowing them to grow independently. Zong Qian shook his head as he spoke. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that such a mystical sword existed. He would never be able to forget the miraculous sight that occurred every year. He would often wonder what sort of character would be able to take away the demon sword. Maybe, only on that day would the mournful wail of the demon sword cease. At this moment, Qin Wenyan and the rest had already arrived at the Zong clan. Outside the Zong clan, 9 gigantic swords were embedded into the ground, each with a height of over 20 meters. A terrifying sword intent permeated the air, causing people to feel stifled. As expected of a sword power, Qin Wenyan laughed as he stared at the 9 swords. "Brother Qin, sorry for the embarrassment." Zong Qian laughed, only to hear Qin Wenyan asking again, "How deep is the foundations of the Zong clan? How strong are they?" Zong Qian was taken aback as he stared at Qin Wenyan. After which, he smiled and replied, "To tell you the truth, I'm not too sure how strong the Zong clan is. But I once heard from the clan lord that the disciples of the Zong clan are all sword cultivators. Sword cultivators have a righteous heart, and are reserved in all matters, not revealing their sharpness. Hence, the Zong clan doesn't create trouble. But sword cultivators, when they unleash their power, they will shine with the resplendent light. With a sword in their hands, nothing in the heavens and earth can obstruct them. Hence, if anyone dares to anger the Zong clan, they will definitely pay the price." Qin Wentian's countenance faltered for a moment before he nodded his head lightly. The clan lord of the Zong clan naturally had his own strength of character. The Zong clan didn't fear the other 2 major powers. Since the Zong clan lord is so imposing, would Brother Zong be willing to introduce me to him? Qin Wenyan smiled, his words causing Zong Qian to curiously glance at Qin Wenyan as he asked, "You actually wish to meet the clan lord?" Qin Wenyan nodded his head. "Regarding this matter, you will know about it in the future. It's not convenient for me to speak too much about it." A bright light flashed in Zong Qian's eyes as he laughed. "Seems like even if I didn't invite Brother Qin here, Brother Qin would still come to my Zong clan. Since this is the case, since Brother Qin has something to attend to, I will help Brother Qin deal with it and allow Brother Qin to meet with the clan lord." "If that's the case, many thanks." Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a deep meaning. Hopefully, the Zong clan wouldn't disappoint him. In the Grand Xia Empire, there were many places where one could cultivate the sword. The Yen Prefecture was the place where sword cultivators were the strongest, and was clearly stronger compared to the sword-reverent city. However, other than cultivating the sword, he had another purpose for coming to the sword-reverent city. "But before that, Brother Qin has to accompany me for a few cups of wine." Zong Qian heartily spoke. Qin Wenyan nodded. "How can I reject good wine?" Chapter 402. In a study room in the Zong clan, a middle-aged man was quietly sitting there, his head lowered as he read through a scroll. Not far away from him, a young man quietly stood there, exuding a sense of patience. This young man was none other than Qin Wenyan. Zong Qian didn't go back on his words. He personally arranged for Qin Wenyan to meet with the clan leader of the Zong clan. After a long time, the middle-aged man slowly inclined his head. His aura was extremely retracted, and there were even a few strands of white hair by his temples. Yet within this retracted aura, Qin Wenyan could feel an overwhelming sharpness radiating from him. That gaze seemed to penetrate through his eyes, wanting to see through him. Zong Qian said that you've recently become famous in the sword-reverent city. You reached the perfection boundary of the insights of swords within 3 months? The clan leader of the Zong clan was named Zong Yi. He casually glanced at Qin Wenyan as he calmly asked, Qin Wenyin lightly nodded his head, causing a strange expression to flash past the eyes of the other party. Being able to reach the perfection boundary of the insights of swords within 3 months? Unless the sword constellation is your 4th astral soul. You need to cultivate the way of the sword, and with your current cultivation base, you only need to increase your comprehension of swords. Senior is awesome. Qin Wenyin had a smile on his face as he calmly admitted. As the sound of his voice faded, Zhong Yi's eyes flickered with sharpness as he stared at Qin Wenyin. Heavenly Dipper Realm, what's your name? Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin calmly replied. Instantly, the sharpness in Zhong Yi's eyes intensified as a terrifying beam of light shot towards Qin Wenyin, akin to a beam of sword light. 1 year ago, the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings was named Qin Wenyin. He was trapped in the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. Zhong Yi stared at Qin Wenyin. I came to the Sword Reverence City 3 months ago. At that time, I'd already left the ancient kingdom. Qin Wenyin didn't deny his identity, he calmly replied. Zhong Yi abruptly stood up. His gaze was filled with a heaviness as he stared at Qin Wenyin. The top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, Qin Wenyin, had come all the way to his Zhong clan? If that's the case, do you know that there are many people who want your life? Since you're here, you don't have to worry about me capturing you. Zhong Yi looked at Qin Wenyin with great interest. A terrifying sword power enveloped the study. A swordsman shall soar through the heavens and earth, laughing proudly at the 9 heavens. Clan leader has allowed the Zhong clan to remain hidden here for generations. Do you still have your hot-bloodedness? Qin Wenyin didn't reply, but asked calmly instead. Zhong Yi's brows twitched as he asked, why did you come to the Zhong clan? Wield the sword of the Zhong clan. Qin Wenyin stared at Zhong Yi, his eyes gleaming with a terrifying sharpness. His palms were facing forwards as an ancient medallion appeared in the palm of his hand. In that instant, Zhong Yi's body violently trembled. He felt as though his mind was struck by lightning. A boundless sword might bore down on Qin Wenyin, causing him to have a hard time breathing. However, Qin Wenyin continued to stare at him, his eyes filled with resolution. Bzz. A raging sword wind swept past, closing the door. Zhong Yi took a step forward, staring at the medallion in Qin Wenyan's hand. What if I kill you? Zhong Yi's aura was terrifying. At this moment, as long as he had any evil thoughts, Qin Wenyin would die for sure. Clan leader, do you know why I'm participating in the Heavenly Fate rankings? Qin Wenyin asked. I don't know, Zhong Yi replied. You aren't the first transcendent power I came across. Before coming to the Zhong clan, I've already found another branch of inheritance. They probably had the same idea as clan leader, and after that, we made an agreement that if I obtained the top 3 positions in the Heavenly Fate rankings, they would listen to my commands unconditionally while I obtained the first rank. Qin Wenyin slowly spoke. Zhong Yi's eyes flickered as many thoughts flashed through his mind. Although he was residing in the Sword Reverence City, the Zhong clan was always paying attention to the major events in Grand Xia. The dossier regarding the Heavenly Fate rankings was placed in front of his study table immediately after it concluded. He knew that this year's Heavenly Fate rankings was the most powerful one in many years, and there was even a mysterious power that wanted to eliminate the top ranker. After reading the dossier, Zhong Yi had sighed. If such a character appeared in the Zhong clan, even if it meant death, they would still do their best to support him, allowing him to wield the sword and fight for supremacy in Grand Xia. And now, this person was standing in front of him with the Azure Emperor medallion in his hands. Bold words, hot-blooded words. He wanted to wield the sword of the Zhong clan. There's no need for you to wield the sword of the Zhong clan. Zhong Yi's palms contained a terrifying ancient sword. His silhouette flickered, and instantly, the ancient sword appeared in front of the center of Qin Wenyan's brows, hovering in the air. It was as though he could kill Qin Wenyan with a single thought. However, Qin Wenyan's eyes were still open, staring at Zhong Yi. Are you not afraid that I'll kill you? Zhong Yi coldly stated. Clan leader, do you know of the Celestial Lake Palace? Qin Wenyan calmly inquired. Fairy Qingmei. Zhong Yi's countenance stiffened. There were many rumors regarding the relationship between Fairy Qingmei and the Azure Emperor. If I die in the Zong clan, the Zong clan will definitely be annihilated. Qin Wendian didn't say anything more. Zong Yi stared at him. Are you saying that Fairy Qingmei is the protector of the Azure Emperor's inheritance? Qin Wendian didn't reply. A bright light flashed as 3 astral novas simultaneously shot out from his Yuanfu, blooming before Zong. What powerful astral novas! Zong Yi stared at the 3 astral novas, as an expression of awe appeared on his face. After which, he saw the 4th astral soul above Qin Wentian's head erupting forth. That terrifying golden-red luster enveloped the black-colored king sword, causing people to feel as though they wanted to submit to it. 6th heavenly layer. Zong Yi's heart pounded. Such a level of talent was rarely seen in this lifetime. If clan leader is unwilling to allow me to wield the sword, I still have 2 choices. First, kill me, the consequences of which are unknown. Second, release me. If I don't die, in the future when the Azure faction takes control of the Azure faction, I will come back to the Zong clan to cleanse the clan. Qin Wentian slowly spoke. His determination was so strong that even Zong Yi's countenance changed. This was the first time he felt his heart trembling when facing a young man. Zong Yi had never imagined that a young man would be able to give him such immense pressure. Bzz. With a wave of his palms, the ancient sword hovering in front of the center of Qin Wentian's brows flew back. The towering sword might that permeated the atmosphere instantly vanished without a trace. Zong Yi stared at Qin Wentian, as a smile appeared on his face. The Azure Emperor finally has a successor. However, Wentian, although your talent is outstanding, you are still too young. If you clash with the other powers now, it would be akin to smashing an egg against a rock. Does clan leader think that I'm a reckless person? Qin Wentian laughed upon seeing Zong Yi softening the atmosphere, as though he didn't mind what had just happened. Standing in Qin Wentian's position, he could understand what Qin Wentian was trying to do. As the clan leader, he had to shoulder the heavy burden of passing down the clan's inheritance. It wasn't an easy matter to entrust their fate to a mere medallion. Hence, at the very least, he, Qin Wentian, had to display enough talent and courage to gain Qin Wentian's approval. He, Qin Wentian, if he didn't have confidence in himself, how could others trust him? With a wave of Zong Yi's palms, a small sword floated in front of Qin Wentian. On the surface of the sword, the ancient word, Zong, was engraved. Since the Azure Emperor has a successor, our Zong clan will naturally do our best to support him. However, it's not convenient for us to reveal ourselves too early. This sword is the symbol of our Zong clan sword sun, and it can be used to command everyone in the Zong clan other than the elders. Wentian, can you hold on to it for now? Zong Yi slowly spoke. Qin Wentian received the sword as he nodded his head. Of course. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face, causing Zong Yi to heave a sigh of relief. Wentian, you mustn't say that. In the future, you can just refer to me as Uncle Zong when we're outside. If there are no outsiders, you can just call me by my name, Zong Yi. Uncle Zong, please don't joke around. I'm still a junior, how can I address Uncle Zong by his name? Qin Wentian naturally knew how to behave. He retracted his astral novas and astral souls, as well as the small sword. Zong Yi walked up and patted Qin Wentian on his shoulder as he seriously stated, "A swordsman shall soar through the heavens and earth, roaring through the 9 heavens. The hot-bloodedness of our Zong clan is still there. Let's go, I'll accompany you for a stroll." Zong Yi stepped out. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he stared at that silhouette. The Zong clan was different from the White Deer Institute. According to Zong Qian, in the Zong clan, the clan lord, Zong Yi, had absolute authority over all matters of the Zong clan. With his support, this indicated that Qin Wentian's trip to the Sword Reverence City would be extremely smooth. At the very least, it would be much smoother compared to the White Deer Institute. After the White Deer Institute, he now had 2 transcendent powers under his control. However, although these 2 powers had deep foundations, they were still lacking in terms of strength. They still needed to be nurtured properly. If not, it would be impossible for them to contend against the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. After that, the Zong clan released a piece of news. The Zong clan's clan lord had personally chosen the Sword Son. The previous Sword Son of the Zong clan had already become an elder-level character. As for the successor to the Zong clan's clan lord, the Sword Son of the current generation had yet to be chosen. But now, the Zong clan had actually chosen Qin Wenyan to be the Sword Son. This matter caused a huge commotion in the Zong clan. This was the first time a Sword Son of an outsider had appeared in the Zong clan. This was no small matter. Many people wanted to see for themselves what sort of character Qin Wenyan was. There were even several younger generations who wanted to exchange pointers with Qin Wenyan to see why he was able to obtain the title of Sword Son. However, none of the elder-level characters sought out Qin Wenyan. Most probably, after Zong Yi had personally chosen Qin Wenyan as the Sword Son, he would naturally instruct them. After all, the inheritance of the Azure Emperor was no small matter. Even if Zong Yi's words carried enormous weight, he still needed the full support of the Zong clan. After Zong Qian learned of this matter, he was also shocked speechless. At this moment, a strange expression appeared on his face as he stared at Qin Wenyan. Brother Qin, you comprehended the Sword Dao in 3 months, and your comprehension abilities are extraordinary. Who would have thought that you would actually become the Sword Son of the Zong clan? I'm truly envious of you. Zong Qian was only one of the 7 Sword Son candidates. These 7 had always been contending for the position of Sword Son, yet none of them were able to obtain the clan lord's approval. Right now, Zong Qian was extremely curious. He didn't know what happened during the meeting between Qin Wenyan and the clan lord. What did you and the clan lord talk about? Zong Qian couldn't help but ask. About the matter regarding the contest for the sword range. Qin Wenyan smiled. The matter regarding the Azure Emperor token was of extreme importance, and naturally, it couldn't be made public. Seems like the clan lord has the intention of borrowing your strength to contest for the sword range. However, both the Heavenly Sword Sect and the Li clan have their own Sword Sons. They are different from the Zong clan, they each have 3 Sword Sons. Since you were appointed as the Sword Son by the clan lord, I believe that you would be able to win one of the matches. As for the other 2 matches, the chances of you winning aren't too high. Especially for the Heavenly Dipper Sword Son battle, you would definitely lose. Our chances are still very slim. Zong Qian slowly spoke. Evidently, he didn't think too highly of Qin Wenyan. The 2 of them walked in the Zong clan, and at this moment, a few people walked over from afar, as a sharp intent gushed towards Qin Wenyan. Zong Qian's gaze abruptly shifted over, staring at those people as he furrowed his brows. Zong Hong, what do you guys want? This Zong Hong was a candidate for the Sword Son position, and had extremely powerful combat prowess. He had always wanted to become the Sword Son of the Zong clan, yet he would never have imagined that the Sword Son position would be bestowed to an outsider by the clan lord. Not long ago, I heard from the Li clan that you brought someone back and wanted to invite him to aid you in battle. This person even rejected Li Ran, and didn't even dare to accept Li Nian's challenge. Yet now, he was actually appointed as the Sword Son. I, Zong Hong, really want to see who this person is, and what qualifications does he have to become the Sword Son of our Zong clan. As the sound of Zong Hong's voice faded, he stepped out, his sword intent pointed straight at Qin Wenyan. Zong Hong, Brother Qin is the Sword Son personally appointed by the clan lord, Zong Qian berated. So what of it? If he doesn't dare to fight, what qualifications does he have to be the Sword Son? Zong Hong's voice was tyrannical as he stared at Qin Wenyan. Don't worry, since the clan lord has appointed you as the Sword Son, I naturally won't harm your life. Chapter 403. Qin Wenyan glanced at Zong Hong, instantly determining his opponent's cultivation base, the 9th level of Yuanfu. At this level, if Qin Wenyan fought against him, it would be akin to bullying the weak. After all, Qin Wenyan already had 3 astral novas despite his cultivation base being at the 9th level of Yuanfu. Such a battle would be meaningless. Let's go. Qin Wenyan lightly shook his head. Sword cultivators were straightforward by nature, If this person was the Sword Sun candidate, he would definitely be unhappy with him. Hence, there was no need for him to haggle over this. Zhong Qian glanced at Qin Wenyan in bewilderment. The longer he interacted with Qin Wenyan, the more he felt he couldn't see through Qin Wenyan. Regardless of Li Ran and Li Nianji's provocations, or even Zhong Hong, Qin Wenyan was as calm as still water, not angered at all. Such a state of mind was extremely rare. He was able to wholeheartedly immerse himself in cultivation. However, Zhong Qian didn't know that Qin Wenyan didn't even view Qin Wenyan as an opponent. Why would he be angered? Indeed, he reacted the same way as Li Nianji. Such a person is not fit to be the Sword Sun of my Zhong clan. Zhong Hong coldly snorted. Those beside him also had cold smiles on their faces. Evidently, they weren't satisfied with the fact that the clan lord had chosen an outsider as the Sword Sun. Many of them found this hard to accept. Bzz. Abruptly, a humming sword appeared in front of Zhong Hong, causing his hair to flutter in the wind. A terrifying sword intent gushed forth from the sword, locking onto Zhong Hong. Since you already know my identity as the Sword Sun, don't blame me for being merciless if you continue to disrespect me. Qin Wenyan icily spoke. With a wave of his hand, the small sword flew back to him as he stepped out, completely ignoring Zhong Hong and the others. Gotcha! Zhong Hong clenched his fists tightly as he stared at the back view of Qin Wenyan. His eyes gleamed with a terrifying sharpness as he icily stated, I don't believe you can hide in your shell forever. Qin Wenyan left as if he hadn't heard anything. A few days later, there were rumors. The news of the outsider Sword Sun, Qin Wenyan, having the possibility of participating in the sword range battle was already circulated around the Zhong clan. However, there were also people who mocked Qin Wenyan, saying that he was as cowardly as a mouse, not even daring to accept the challenge from Zhong Hong. Not only that, he had once cowered in front of Li Nian. There were many rumors about Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan knew that this was something that would happen after he became the Sword Sun. After defeating one Zhong Hong, there would be another. If he wanted to shut the mouths of the younger generations of the Zhong clan, the only way was to display a level of talent and strength that they would never be able to catch up to. In the Zhong clan's library, Qin Wenyan sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through the ancient scrolls. On the ancient scrolls, there were many sword techniques, as well as the cultivation notes of some sword cultivators. There were also records of the cultivation achievements of their seniors. Qin Wenyan slowly comprehended. The first level of mandates was the basic level, everyone was the same. But for the second level, one had to depend on one's own luck and comprehension ability to comprehend it. Reading the words of the ancients would naturally be beneficial to his comprehension. In ancient times, there was a sword cultivator who meditated for 7 years. His sword and heart were one, and when his sword was unleashed, his heart trembled, comprehending the mandate of the sword heart. Qin Wenyan browsed through the ancient scrolls. The first level of mandates was the same, but for the second level, the difference could be extremely great. How terrifying was the mandate of the sword heart? The sword resonated with one's heart, and when the sword was unleashed, it could destroy one's heart. This was too terrifying, even more terrifying than his heartbreak ancient bell. There were also sword cultivators who comprehended the mandate of the sword shadow. When they slashed out with their swords, the sword light was illusory, while the sword shadow was real. When others tried to defend against the sword light, they would already be trapped within the mandate of the sword heart and die under the sword shadow. Such a mandate of the sword heart could kill invisibly. Qin Wenyan glanced at another page, feeling the vastness of mandates. Different people would comprehend different things, and when fighting against opponents of the same cultivation level, a single sword strike could determine life and death. The sword, the king of all weapons, could seize life with a single thought. When fighting against sword cultivators, one had to be incomparably cautious. Seems like I still have to temper myself and comprehend. Sitting here and reading the ancient scrolls can only guide me, but it won't allow me to comprehend. Unless I can be like those ancient swordsmen, sitting there for several years at a time. That's too terrifying, I don't have that much time. Qin Wenyan mused. after which he placed the ancient scrolls back and walked out of the library. At this moment, it was already nighttime. Qin Wenyan soared up into the air and slapped out with his palms. Momentarily, sword qi whistled through the air, condensing into an ancient sword. Qin Wenyan stepped onto the ancient sword, and instantly, the ancient sword sped off into the distance. In the sword-reverent city, there were many people flying on their swords. Qin Wenyan wasn't eye-catching at all. After a long time, Qin Wenyan arrived at the outskirts of the sword-reverent city. Moonlight cascaded down from the cliff, cascading down from the sky. The ancient sword beneath Qin Wenyan's feet whistled through the air, flying towards the depths of the cliff. After which, a powerful sword intent permeated the air. He controlled the ancient sword beneath his feet to get closer and closer to the sword intent. Finally, borrowing the moonlight, Qin Wenyan saw a terrifying gigantic sword that was over 1,000 meters long. It was stabbed into the ground, and a fearsome sword might gushed forth from it. In the surroundings of the sword, a sword-shaped mountain range was formed. In the surroundings there were several guards. Upon seeing Qin Wenyan flying over, one of them stepped forward and berated, "This is the sword range, no one is allowed to enter." Qin Wenyan heard from Zongqian that in the past 10 years, the sword range was controlled by the Heavenly Sword sect. Hence, the guards here were all experts from the Heavenly Sword sect. This sword is truly terrifying. Qin Wenyan's heart trembled. The body of the sword was over 1,000 meters long and was as tall as a mountain peak. If it descended from the skies, it would definitely be able to cleave the earth apart, creating a cliff. In truth, although Qin Wenyan could clearly see the silhouette of the sword, he was still quite a distance away from it. It was only because the sword was too gigantic that he had the illusion that it was right in front of him. If this place wasn't a cliff but a flat ground, he would be able to see the sword even from a few hundred miles away. No wonder no one was able to pull this sword out after so many years. Qin Wenyan silently mused. The sword was over 1,000 meters long, and with a single glance, it seemed as though it could pierce through the heavens. How heavy was this sword exactly? Even if a heavenly dipper sovereign could pull it out, would they be able to wield it normally? It was basically impossible. Even if an ordinary person wanted to grab hold of it, it would be extremely difficult. The hilt of the sword was as large as a giant. It was simply too terrifying. Above the dome of heaven, astral light cascaded downwards, bathing the demon sword in the starlight, causing it to appear even more distinct, exuding a demonic aura. Demon sword, a gigantic sword. When this sword cleaves down, it can cleave the earth apart, creating a cliff. Qin Wenyan turned, and after which, he opened up a cave dwelling and sat down cross-legged. It was naturally impossible for him to believe that he had the ability to obtain the demon sword. It was only because of Zongqian's words that he came here with an intense curiosity in his heart, wanting to comprehend the intent of the demon sword. Closing his eyes in his cave dwelling, he didn't step into the territory of the sword range. The people from the Heavenly Sword sect wouldn't disturb him. Qin Wenyan quietly sensed his surroundings. Deep into the night, the land of the cliff was filled with boundless silence. Occasionally, a demonic wind gusted by, and there were actually sounds of moaning, like the cries of death. If it wasn't for the fact that Qin Wenyan's perception was extremely strong, he wouldn't have been able to hear it. This mournful wail gradually transformed into the mournful wail of a demon. Within the mournful wail, a sword intent could be sensed. It was still the same as before, but in Qin Wenyan's perception, it was extremely clear. His perception was too strong, and he was even more sensitive to the intent of demons. Roar! Abruptly, a terrifying demonic wail drifted into his ears. In an instant, Qin Wenyan only felt a beam of sword light flashing past him. His body abruptly retreated with explosive speed, as fast as lightning. Qin Wenyan felt a chill on his neck. He stretched his hand out to touch it, only to discover that there was actually a trace of blood on his neck. His heart pounding, Qin Wenyan stood up. That illusory sword intent from earlier had already vanished, as though it had never appeared before. However, his neck had almost been lacerated to death. Such a bizarre scene shook Qin Wentian's heart, causing him to be unable to calm down even after a long time. At this moment, his state of mind was in a chaotic mess. He couldn't hear the mournful wail of the sword. That sword intent didn't appear again. Ooh! Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. He actually sat down cross-legged once more as his perception permeated the surroundings. Instantly, the mournful wail of the demon whale resounded once more. Not only that, it was everywhere, howling in the cliffs, howling in the wind. Qin Wentian could see the silhouettes of a dragon, a vermilion bird, a white tiger, a black tortoise. All sorts of demonic sword shadows materialized, appearing within Qin Wentian's perception. These sword shadows drilled into the ground, merging into the gigantic boulders of the sword range. The gigantic boulders of the sword range originally had a similar sword intent, and after many years of accumulation, if they were to break out from the ground, they would become demonic swords. So this is how the demonic swords of the sword range are formed. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. Abruptly, the mournful wail of the demonic dragon whale rang out. Qin Wentian only felt a terrifying suppressive force gushing towards him, as though it wanted to kill him. Qin Wentian shut off his perception. Instantly, the sword intent dissipated, as though it had never appeared before. It was as though it had never existed before. He had never felt that surge of power, and he wasn't injured at all. As expected, Qin Wentian's heart trembled. What a terrifying force. If he could comprehend the second level of the mandate of swords, what kind of sword intent would that be? Qin Wentian's heart pounded as he immersed himself within, unable to extricate himself. The sun and moon alternated as time flowed by. Qin Wentian stayed in the cave for 7 days and 7 nights. He didn't leave and was still immersed within. And in this area of the sword range, the number of human silhouettes gradually increased. Because there were only a few days left until the start of the contest for the sword range. In the Zhong clan, the sword son Qin Wentian, who was appointed by the clan lord, suddenly disappeared, causing many to raise their eyebrows. Wasn't this a little too strange? He had just been appointed as the sword son. Could it be that he knew he would be challenged by many direct descendants of the Zhong clan and chose to hide himself? It seemed like that day, after Zhong Hong provoked him, Qin Wentian didn't appear again the next day. At this moment, in the training grounds of the Zhong clan, the disciples of the Zhong clan were sparring against each other. Zhong Hong faced Zhong Qian as he sarcastically asked, "That good friend of yours, why is he hiding? Brother Qin might have some matters to attend to. Do you think he needs to report it to you?" Zhong Qian faintly replied, yet Zhong Hong coldly laughed. Several disciples of the Zhong clan all had mocking expressions on their faces. Evidently, they weren't willing to accept Qin Wentian's position as the sword son. Especially the person in the middle, Zhong Peng. This person was a Heavenly Dipper Realm Sword Son candidate of the Zhong clan, and would be participating in the Heavenly Dipper Realm Sword Son battle this time around. The responsibility of the contest for the sword range was on his shoulders, and this battle was the most crucial one. As long as he won this battle, unless one of the transcendent powers was able to win both battles in the Yuanfu realm, it would be their victory. The Heavenly Dipper Realm Sword Son battle was the most important. Zhong Peng had always believed that after this battle, the title of Sword Son would belong to him. Yet now, the clan lord had actually bestowed it to someone else. After the contest for the sword range, I will strip him of his Sword Son status, Zhong Peng calmly stated, his words causing the surrounding spectators to laugh coldly at Zhong Qian. Chapter 404. Below the precipice, outside the sword range, Qin Wentian continued to comprehend in peace, ignoring everything that was happening in the outside world. He had already achieved one of his objectives in coming to the Sword Reverend City. Next, he needed to focus on comprehending the second level of the mandate of swords and condense his astral nova, stepping into the Heavenly Dipper realm with 4 Yuanfu. The night was as still as water, and the starlight shone brightly. Occasionally, the mournful wails of the demon's sword could be heard. Qin Wentian's perception permeated the area, and abruptly he discovered a sharp beam of sword light shooting towards him. Frowning, his powerful perception instantly sensed that in the sword range, there was actually a powerful sword cultivator around 30 years of age who was also comprehending the mandate of swords. The will of the demon sword was extremely intense, and everyone could comprehend the mandate of swords here. Not only that, the insights they gained were different. That person's perception was as sharp as a sword, and a terrifying beam of cold light shot towards Qin Wenyin, boundless and endless. Qin Wenyan's countenance didn't change, he continued sitting cross-legged. The sword light he sensed seemed to be real, piercing into Qin Wenyan's sea of consciousness, causing Qin Wenyan's eyes to abruptly open as a brilliant light shone from them. It was as though he had suddenly gained enlightenment. "Seems like I have to thank you for this," Qin Wenyan mumbled. After which, he walked out of the cavern and soared up into the air, closing his eyes. With a tap of his palm, the ancient sword strapped on his back soared up into the air, landing in Qin Wenyan's palm. Qin Wenyan's palm slashed out, slashing out a beam of sword light. There was no pattern to this attack, it was chaotic and disorderly. This wasn't a sword art, and it didn't have the ferocity of a sword. However, Qin Wenyan continued to slash out with his sword, disregarding the style of the sword. Although the sword wasn't a sword art, and there was no pattern to it, it was as though the body of the sword was the pattern itself. Each and every sword strike contained a unique sword rhythm that was extremely pleasing to the eyes. However, it seemed that it was merely this, there was no power to it at all. In the distance, within the sealed space of the sword vein, several silhouettes whistled over, arriving in front of Qin Wenyan in an instant. When these people saw Qin Wenyan brandishing his sword, they couldn't help laughing. This level of swordplay is extremely clumsy. Any random incantation would be enough to defeat him. A female with a tall and slender figure stared at Qin Wenyan as she commented in a low voice, her tone filled with disdain. "Looks like he's just an ordinary sword cultivator. He wants to comprehend the sword here, but he doesn't know how high the heavens are and how deep the earth is." He even disturbed senior brother Jianfeng's comprehension. The person next to him sneered as well. He watched as Qin Wenyan swung his sword, not minding it at all. When the woman next to him heard Qin Wenyan's name, a trace of worship appeared on her face. Her heart palpitated slightly. Senior brother Jianfeng was one of the 3 great sword sons of the Heavenly Sword sect. Be it his talent or strength, he was outstanding. Right now, senior brother Jianfeng was at the boundary of the sword range, comprehending the sword in the vicinity of the demon sword. Because he was disturbed, he sent a message to them, asking them to come over and take a look. Qin Wenyan stopped swinging his sword. When he opened his eyes, he saw the group of people before him. But at this moment he seemed to be extremely happy. His lips curled into a faint smile, and his handsome countenance appeared even more demonic and beautiful under the illumination of the starlight. The woman stared at Qin Wenyan as her countenance changed slightly. After which, she coldly laughed, "Looks good but is useless. What's the point of being born with just a pair of skin bags?" Qin Wenyan couldn't help but have a strange expression on his face when he heard the woman's words. He turned his gaze onto her, only to realize that she had lost her composure. Her countenance couldn't help but turn cold as she stated, "This place isn't suitable for you. Leave quickly." "I don't think I'm in the vicinity of the sword range, right?" Qin Wenyan asked. "You dare to talk back?" That woman coldly snorted. Their Heavenly Sword sect was a lofty existence in the sword-reverent city. Who would dare to be disrespectful to them? The disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect were a tier higher than others, and no matter where they went, they would be worshipped and worshipped. "Your swordsmanship is clumsy and unsightly, yet you still dare to dance with your sword here? You're an insult to our eyes and ears." The woman disdainfully stared down at the crowd, her countenance filled with arrogance. Since this was an order from her senior brother Jianfeng, she naturally had to do it well. If this man didn't know what was good for him, she wouldn't mind teaching him a lesson. Clumsy and unsightly? Unsightly? Qin Wenyan had a bitter smile on his face as he faintly replied, "It's not that my swordsmanship is clumsy, it's just that I'm someone who doesn't know how to use the sword." As the sound of his voice faded, he turned and walked away. The woman pointed at Qin Wentian's back, almost choking on her saliva. Although she was only here to guard the sword range, she was still someone with a cultivation base at the 8th level of Yuanfu. Her mandate of swords had already reached the transformation boundary, and she was extremely powerful. Arrogant. Ignorant. Seems like he's just a madman who doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. Junior sister, there's no need to bother with him. This man's swordsmanship is so weak, yet he still dares to spout such arrogant words. How ridiculous. Another person persuaded. Only then did the woman understand. She glared at the departing silhouette, and after which, they all turned and returned to the direction of the sword range. That woman inclined her head and stared in the direction of a certain cave dwelling. Her eyes flashed with a strange light as her heart pounded rapidly. She had always believed that the Heavenly Sword Sect was the #1 power in the sword-reverent city. Her senior brother Jianfeng's talent in swordsmanship was the strongest in the Heavenly Sword Sect, and he was the only sword son that was personally chosen by the sect leader. Although his combat prowess wasn't the strongest, no one dared to doubt his future accomplishments. In fact, it was even possible for him to succeed the position of the sect leader. Qin Wentian left the area, but he didn't leave the cliff. He found another quiet location and cultivated for 3 days before he finally left the cliff and returned to the sword-reverent city. In the Zong clan, when Qin Wentian returned, he attracted the attention of many as they discussed about him. During these days, Qin Wentian's reputation in the Zong clan grew greater and greater. Although the elders of the Zong clan didn't say anything, the younger members of the Zong clan were all talking about him. And now, Zong Peng and the rest had even announced that after the battle at the sword range, they would strip Qin Wentian of his status as the sword son. And at this moment, Qin Wentian had returned. Qin Wentian could sense the gazes of the crowd, but he didn't care. At this moment he wanted to find the clan leader, Zong Yi, and he needed some Yuan meteor stones. And when Qin Wentian passed by a training ground, several people glanced at him as a voice called out, "Qin Wentian." Qin Wentian turned his gaze over, and his eyes landed on Zong Qian. "Zong Qian, bring me to see the clan leader." "Right." Zong Qian nodded his head as he soared up into the air. However, the people below all had cold smiles on their faces as Zong Hong coldly spoke. "Qin Wentian, how long are you going to hide until?" Qin Wentian glanced at Zong Hong as he shook his head in his heart. "Zong Hong, your goal shouldn't be to provoke me. You should focus on improving your swordsmanship and comprehend the 2nd level of mandate." Zong Hong's countenance turned even colder when he heard the tone in Qin Wentian's voice. He berated, "Comprehending the 2nd level of mandate isn't something that can be done in a day or two. What qualifications do you have to lecture me? There were so many times when I asked you to battle, but you chose to avoid me. And now, after hiding for a few days, you want to seek the protection of the clan leader the moment you return." The others all stared at Qin Wentian. Many of them had mocking expressions on their faces. Upon seeing this scene, Qin Wentian shook his head lightly as he continued walking forward. "Such a coward, how can you be fit to be the sword son of my Zong clan? Why don't you hand over the sword son's sword and let me wield it?" Zong Hong's tone grew increasingly arrogant, incessantly provoking Qin Wentian. Beside him, a few silhouettes were coldly smiling at Qin Wentian. "All of you, wait for me here." Qin Wentian faintly spoke as he sped away together with Zong Qian. Zong Hong and the rest froze as they stared at the back view of Qin Wentian and coldly laughed. "Fine, I will wait for you here." The crowd all had expressions of interest on their faces. As the news circulated, the younger generations of the Zong clan all gathered here. There were some who disdained Qin Wentian's status as the sword son, while there were others who simply wanted to see how outstanding the sword son was. Qin Wentian and Zong Qian found the clan leader, Zong Yi, only to see Zong Yi looking at them with a smile on his face. "Uncle Zong." Qin Wentian called out. Zong Yi nodded his head. "I heard that you weren't in the Zong clan these few days. What brings you here today?" "I won't hide it from Uncle Zong. I need some Yuan meteor stones. It's just that I'm a little short on money recently, so I need to borrow some from Uncle Zong." Qin Wentian smiled bitterly. Although he was the successor of the Azure Emperor, he hadn't done anything for the Zhong clan yet. If he were to ask for Yuan meteor stones, Qin Wenyan would feel a little uncomfortable. He wasn't the kind of person who liked to ask for things. If you need them, just tell me. What's the use of borrowing them? Zhong Yi waved his hands as numerous Yuan meteor stones appeared on the ground. These were all from the fourth heavenly layer and contained a terrifying amount of energy within, causing Zhong Qian to have a look of shock on his face. The clan leader was truly good to Qin Wenyan. Not enough. Qin Wenyan had a bitter smile on his face. His astral novas were different from others. The amount of Yuan meteor stones he needed was much higher. Zhong Yi started, glancing at Qin Wenyan before he understood. Smiling, he replied, "Good, good." After which, he waved his hands again. This time around, the Yuan meteor stones piled up, taller than a person, causing Zhong Qian to involuntarily draw in a breath of cold air. Qin Wenyan waved his hands, collecting the Yuan meteor stones into his interspatial ring. He then turned his gaze onto Zhong Yi as he stated, "Uncle Zhong, I will participate in the contest for the sword range." Zhong Yi nodded his head lightly as he smiled. "If you go, I can rest assured. The rights to the sword range for the next 10 years should belong to my Zhong clan. I'll make a move first." Qin Wenyan bade his farewell, and Zhong Qian naturally followed him. Staring at Qin Wenyan's gaze, Zhong Qian was speechless. This fellow, what exactly did he discuss with the clan leader that day? The way the clan leader treated him didn't seem to be the same as how one would treat a junior. Qin Wenyan returned to the training grounds. Standing in the air, he stared down at Zhong Hong and the rest as his countenance abruptly turned sharp. The Qin Wenyan at this moment, no one dared to look him in the eye. His demeanor had completely changed. "Those who are unwilling to accept my position as the Sword Son, feel free to step out," Qin Wenyan stated. As the sound of his voice faded, several people coldly snorted, standing together with Zhong Hong. They were all the Sword Sons of this generation. Attack together, Qin Wenyan emotionlessly spoke, his long hair fluttering in the wind, his tone incomparably arrogant. Zhong Hong and the rest coldly snorted, as a terrifying sharpness shot up into the skies, aiming for Qin Wenyan. The keening of a sword as it was unsheathed caused a cold light to envelop the entire space. For a moment, silence reigned. "Feel it well." Qin Wenyan took a step forward. Instantly, the ancient sword strapped on his back was unsheathed by half a foot, yet it wasn't fully unsheathed yet. The keening of the sword rang out, and the people below only felt their sharpness being sealed, as though they were being sliced apart by an invisible force. "Bzz." Qin Wenyan took another step forward, and the ancient sword was once again unsheathed by half a foot. The sword keening rang out again, as the cold light it emitted was akin to blood. Exclamations of shock rang out, only to see Zhong Hong and the rest feeling a chill on their faces as fresh blood flowed out from their cheeks. For a moment, their faces were filled with terror as they stared at Qin Wenyan, who was descending from the skies. The sharpness of his sword intent enveloped the heavens and earth, as though he was the king of swords. "You guys are not fit to cultivate the sword." As the sound of Qin Wenyan's voice faded, he took another step forward. The heavens and earth keened as the sword keened. Piercing sounds rang out as Zhong Hong and the rest directly collapsed onto the ground. Their robes were torn apart as fresh blood seeped out from their necks. If the sword had penetrated even an inch deeper, they would have died. The entire training ground was deathly silent. Everyone stared at the person who was descending from the skies, their countenances filled with terror. "Umph!" A cold snort rang out, causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. Qin Wenyan flicked his sleeves as he stepped forward. In the blink of an eye, that towering sword might vanished without a trace. Chapter 405. Zhong Qian was also dumbfounded by this scene. He stood there in a daze, and before he could even react, Qin Wenyan had already left. How powerful! Zhong Qian was deeply shocked. Not only him, the other members of the younger generation of the Zhong clan were all shocked to the extreme. Too powerful. From the start to the end, Qin Wenqian's sword hadn't even been unsheathed. He merely stepped out in the air, causing the clothes of Zhong Hong and the others to be torn apart as fresh blood flowed out. They stood there stiffly, not even having the strength to resist. As long as Qin Wenqian willed it, he would be able to slay them. As long as Qin Wenqian took another step forward, or if his sword were to be drawn out by an inch, they would all be dead. This battle simply wasn't on the same level. Qin Wenqian's sword was too terrifying. Did he really only spend 3 months comprehending the way of the sword? Zhong Qian finally understood why the Zhong clan lord regarded Qin Wenqian with such importance, directly appointing him as the sword son. Drawing in a deep breath, Zhong Qian turned his gaze onto Zhong Hong as he emotionlessly stated, "Now, you should understand why Brother Qin refused to accept my challenge. It's not that he's afraid, it's just that we aren't on the same level." As the sound of his voice faded, Zhong Qian stepped out, departing the area. At this moment, a bitter smile could be seen on his face. When he thought back to the time when Li Nian provoked Qin Wenqian, he couldn't help but feel a sense of ridicule in his heart. In fact, he was thinking that if Qin Wenqian had fought against the Heavenly Dipper sovereign of the Li clan when Li Ran arrived, what would the result be? Qin Wenqian should have already comprehended the second level of insight in the mandate of swords. If not, it would be impossible for him to display such overwhelming might. However, Qin Wenqian's cultivation base seemed to still be at the Yuanfu realm. Yuan meteor stones. Abruptly, Zhong Qian recalled the scene when Qin Wenqian went to the Zhong clan lord to ask for Yuan meteor stones. The Zhong clan lord's eyes lit up when he said the words "not enough." Could it be? As he thought of this, Zhong Qian's heart pounded violently. Seems like it was time to condense an astral nova. In the Zhong clan, the voices of discussion regarding Qin Wenqian didn't diminish. Everyone was discussing that battle, but it couldn't even be considered a battle. It was purely because Qin Wenqian had taught Zhong Hong and the others a lesson, telling them what a sword son was. Qin Wenqian had said that they weren't worthy to cultivate the sword. Under such circumstances, it was indeed a heavy blow to their Dao hearts, causing Zhong Hong and the others to be dispirited. However, if this was the case, they wouldn't be worthy of being the sword son candidate of the Zhong clan. If they could break through this knot in their hearts, they would definitely have more accomplishments in the sword Dao. Some people had already started to compare Qin Wenqian to sword son Zhong Peng, who was at the Heaven Dipper realm. They were guessing what would happen if Qin Wenqian and Zhong Peng were to fight. Zhong Peng's strength was extremely powerful. In the younger generation of the Zhong clan, there weren't many Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, and Zhong Peng was one of them. Not only that, his sword techniques were extremely powerful. He had once said that after the battle at the sword range, he would strip Qin Wenqian of his title as the sword son. Now that Qin Wenqian had revealed his strength, no one knew what the ending would be if the two of them fought. For those who had witnessed the battle where Qin Wenqian suppressed Zhong Hong, they all felt that Qin Wenqian's title as the sword son wasn't just in name. However, there were also those who hadn't witnessed that battle who supported Zhong Peng, hoping that Zhong Peng would be able to snatch the title of sword son back from an outsider. The title of sword son should be inherited by someone from their Zhong clan. In the courtyard Zhong Peng was in, Zhong Hong stood before him. His eyes were filled with traces of dispiritedness, as though he had suffered an extremely heavy blow from that battle. "What's wrong? A single defeat has caused you, the sword son candidate, to be so depressed?" Zhong Peng smiled as he stared at Zhong Hong. Zhong Hong stared at him as he shook his head. "You have no idea how humiliating that battle was." Today, he would never be able to forget the scene of Qin Wenqian descending from the heavens. That scene was simply too terrifying. At that time, he only felt that as long as he moved, he would die. Not only that, that feeling was real. As long as Qin Wenqian willed it, he would be able to kill him. In fact, Qin Wenqian didn't even need to unsheath his sword. Such a battle caused him to feel extremely depressed. He must have comprehended the second level of the mandate of swords, and it should be one of the more powerful ones. It's extremely normal for him to suppress someone at the first level of the mandate of swords. What's there to be depressed about? Zhong Peng smiled as though he was consoling Zhong Hong. "However, the disparity between us is too great. Zhong Hong still found it hard to forget. Feel it. Zhong Peng stood up, smiling at Zhong Hong, causing Zhong Hong's eyes to flicker. Ever since Zhong Peng stepped into Heavenly Dipper, because of the disparity between them, he had never sparred with Zhong Peng again. Now, he wanted to see how great the disparity between him and Zhong Peng was. I've seen it clearly. Zhong Peng's silhouette flickered as he vanished from sight. Zhong Hong's eyes narrowed as he retreated, but at this moment he saw countless sword shadows filling the sky. He had no way to differentiate which sword light was the real one. He stood there, waiting for death. The sword shadows dissipated as Zhong Peng stood before him. Staring at Zhong Hong, he asked, "Do you understand now? The disparity between the first and second level is truly too great." Zhong Hong nodded. "Naturally, my second level of the Mandate of Swords is the Mandate of Swords. If I used it to kill you, it would be too easy. It's the same for Qin Wendian as well. Since he has comprehended the second level of the Mandate of Swords, it would be extremely easy for him to deal with you. There's nothing strange about it. It's just that you were intimidated by his aura back then. If I was the one standing before him, would he be able to defeat me?" Zhong Peng laughed, his words causing Zhong Hong to nod his head in contemplation. He could sense the confidence radiating from Zhong Peng, and abruptly, an intense conviction ignited in Zhong Hong's heart. He wanted to comprehend the second level of the Mandate of Swords and break through to Heavenly Dipper. Only then would he be able to fight for the position of Sword Son. "Let me give you a suggestion. Earlier, you should have already sensed my Mandate of Swords. Now, you can pay a visit to Qin Wendian and have a discussion with him. Get him to display his Mandate of Swords for you to comprehend. After that, you can come to me for a discussion and I'll explain it to you." Zhong Peng still had a smile on his face as he guided Zhong Hong, causing Zhong Hong to feel gratitude in his heart. However, he shook his head and replied, "I've already provoked him several times. How could he possibly help me?" "That's where you're wrong. Since he's the Sword Son of the Zhong clan, he's also a member of the Zhong clan. What kind of status does a Sword Son have? As the leader of the younger generation, he has responsibilities. Since this is the case, you should humbly seek guidance from him and treat him with respect. If he isn't willing to guide you, how can he be qualified to be the Sword Son?" Zhong Peng slowly continued, "But you, if you're unwilling to put aside your pride, you would truly disappoint me." Zhong Hong's countenance sank, as though he was moved by Zhong Peng's words. After which, he nodded his head. "How can I, Zhong Hong, be so shallow? I'll leave now." After speaking, Zhong Hong bade farewell and departed. At this moment, Qin Wendian was sitting cross-legged in his courtyard. Night gradually descended. He was preparing to condense his astral nova tonight. However, at this moment, the sound of footsteps drifted over. Qin Wendian opened his eyes and stared outside the courtyard. A voice drifted over, "Zhong Hong, Senior is here to pay a visit. Come in." Qin Wendian faintly spoke. An instant later, Zhong Hong appeared before Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian stared at him, bewildered. "Qin Wendian, I was in the wrong regarding the matter before. Hence, I'm here today to humbly seek guidance from you. Is it possible for me to sense the mandate of your sword Dao? I wish to use this opportunity to gain enlightenment." Zhong Hong slowly spoke, his words causing Qin Wendian's countenance to soften. His heart wasn't so narrow-minded. Since he had already taught Zhong Hong a lesson, now that Zhong Hong was here to humbly seek guidance from him, he decided to let bygones be bygones. The first level of mandate is the same for everyone. As for the second level, it depends on the individual's comprehension. My path might not be suitable for you. Qin Wendian slowly continued, "You can read more ancient scrolls, ponder more, comprehend more, and comprehend more. You don't have to sense the second level of mandates of others. That's the path of others." Zhong Hong furrowed his brows. Qin Wendian's words were completely different from what Zhong Peng had told him. Could it be that Qin Wendian valued his own mandates? He wasn't willing to guide Qin Wendian at all. "I know, but I still wish to sense your mandate once more." Zhong Hong's brows smoothed out as he calmly spoke. However, how sharp was Qin Wentian's eyes? He could clearly see the expression on Zhong Hong's face earlier, and he couldn't help but shake his head in his heart. So it turned out that the grudge in Zhong Hong's heart hadn't been put down yet. I've already said what I need to say. You can leave now and do your best. Qin Wentian closed his eyes. If that scene from earlier didn't happen, he definitely wouldn't be stingy in releasing his mandate. However, for someone who had yet to comprehend anything, he could only pray that they could walk out of this world. He wasn't so magnanimous as to slowly guide them. And as expected, after hearing Qin Wentian's words, Zhong Hong's brows furrowed once more as he coldly stated, "As a sword son, you actually dared to do such a thing. Although you have strength, this is the sorrow of my Zhong clan." As the sound of his voice faded, Zhong Hong flicked his sleeves and departed. Qin Wentian shook his head as he watched Zhong Hong depart. He tossed this matter aside and cleared his mind of all distracting thoughts. Such a matter wouldn't be able to affect his state of heart. As night descended, Qin Wentian inscribed a divine inscription formation. An instant later, his silhouette flickered in and out of existence. Closing his eyes, Qin Wentian lay on the ground as numerous Yuan meteor stones appeared beside him. Right now, he had already condensed 3 astral novas. Regardless of whether it was absorbing the astral energy from the 9 heavenly layers or absorbing the astral energy from the Yuan meteor stones, the rate at which he was absorbing the astral energy had increased. The infuriated Zhong Hong returned to Zhong Peng's courtyard and discussed this matter with him. Zhong Peng's countenance flickered with a cold glint before he laughed. "Zhong Hong, although this Qin Wentian's character is despicable, you don't need to take it to heart. Focus on your own cultivation. That's the most important thing." Zhong Hong nodded his head. Zhong Peng's words were indeed logical. When he thought of Qin Wentian, Zhong Hong felt that the disparity between the two of them was too great. What a pity, Qin Wentian is already the sword's son. Such a person Zhong Peng sighed. Zhong Hong coldly snorted, "Zhong Peng, get rid of him as soon as possible." After speaking, he bid his farewell and departed once again. Very swiftly, there were many rumors circulating in the Zhong clan. The general gist of the rumors was that Qin Wentian's character was despicable. Zhong Hong had sincerely sought guidance from Qin Wentian, yet Qin Wentian had brushed him off. Zhong Peng, on the other hand, had an extraordinary demeanor. If Qin Wentian continued to be the sword son of the Zhong clan, it would truly be a tragedy for the Zhong clan. Tonight, in the Zhong clan, the astral light shone resplendently. The clan lord, Zhong Yi, stared in the direction of Qin Wentian as a smile appeared on his face. If this young man can rise up, the Azure Emperor of Grand Xia would definitely be able to regain its former glory. Just when the youths of the Zhong clan were vilifying Qin Wentian, their clan lord firmly believed that Qin Wentian would be able to lead the Zhong clan to glory in the future. Chapter 406. As the saying goes, 3 words make a tiger. If one person said the same thing, others might doubt it. But if 2 people said the same thing, others might doubt it. But now, when so many people in the Zhong clan were discussing how bad Qin Wentian's character was, everyone gradually began to believe it. As for Zhong Hong, although he was arrogant, his temperament could still be considered righteous. It was impossible for him to lie. Since he said that he personally paid a visit to the sword's son, there was no way he would lie. Since Zhong Hong personally paid a visit to seek guidance from Qin Wentian, it meant that he was admitting to his mistakes. Qin Wentian was the sword's son of the Zhong clan, a leading figure among the younger generation. Yet he was so arrogant and even tried to stall Zhong Hong. It seemed like he truly wasn't a suitable candidate to be the sword's son. Gradually, some of the elders started to have opinions about Qin Wentian. Especially for an elder, Zhong Hong's uncle. He personally suggested to the clan lord that Qin Wentian's status as the sword's son be revoked. However, the clan lord objected. He went to report this to the doyens but was rejected by them as well. Naturally, Qin Wentian had no idea about this. During these few days, he had been concentrating on condensing his astral nova. Another night passed. In the skies above the Zhong clan, A beam of sword light flashed as rays of resplendent sword-shaped astral light cascaded downwards. Abruptly, a terrifying sword might permeated the entire Zong clan. In the Zong clan, many people opened their eyes and stared at the resplendent astral light in the skies. When they sensed that terrifying sword might, their hearts trembled. "This sword intent actually contains the will of a king," someone murmured. It was unknown who it was that had comprehended the king's sword. Those from the Zong clan were all extremely sensitive to sword intent. Hence, the majority of them could feel the sword might radiating from it. However, only the clan lord Zong Yi knew that this sword might was condensed from Qin Wentian's sword Astral Nova. Many people extended their perception towards the location where the sword might originated from. Abruptly, the sword might vanished without a trace. Their perception arrived at a courtyard, only to see Qin Wentian sitting on the ground, staring at the skies with a faint smile on his face. "Everyone, what's the matter?" At this moment, Qin Wentian uttered. He could naturally sense that many people's perception had descended upon him. Those senses instantly retracted like a tide, as if they had never existed. The doubts in their hearts grew. Why was this person here? Was he cultivating just now? Where did the aura of the Emperor Realm sword come from? Qin Wentian closed his eyes as his perception faded away. He calmly sensed the changes in his Yuanfu. A sword-shaped astral nova sat in the center of his fourth Yuanfu. Although he wasn't a sword son, as someone from the Zong clan, there was no need for them to treat him this way, right? At this moment, a young girl about 18 or 19 years of age walked to the side of Qin Wentian. This young girl had delicate features that still contained hints of immaturity. She walked to the side of Qin Wentian, appearing somewhat reserved. She had personally witnessed Qin Wentian's strength that day. How powerful, even before his sword was unsheathed, Zhong Hong and the rest didn't even dare to act against him. "Qin Wentian, that day when Zhong Hong went to seek guidance from you, did you really chase him away?" The young girl asked in a light voice, her words causing Qin Wentian to frown as he asked in bewilderment, "Did Zhong Hong say anything?" The lips of the young girl twitched as she stared at Qin Wentian. "Qin Wentian, you might be powerful, but as the sword's son, you shouldn't have done such a thing. Since Zhong Hong went to seek guidance from you, it means that he knows he was in the wrong. You should be the one guiding him instead." Qin Wentian stared at the innocent eyes of the young girl. He knew that this young girl had a simple and honest heart. Looking at the gazes of the others, he knew that they were all silently cursing him in their hearts. Gossip is a fearful thing. Qin Wentian silently shook his head before he lightly laughed. "What's your name?" "Zhong Lian," the young girl replied in a light voice. Cultivation is a matter of oneself. Everyone's spiritual roots are different, their talent is different, their experiences are different, and their comprehension would be different as well. In the future when you cultivate, you mustn't follow the path of others just because you see how powerful they are. You have to find the path that suits you the most. You only need to carefully sense and comprehend the energy of others. Only the path that you like, the path that you are proficient in, would be the most suitable for you. Qin Wentian smiled. Cultivation is originally about following one's heart. If one's heart isn't, how can one cultivate? This is my understanding, just listen to it. I won't force my understanding on you. Zhong Lian pondered for a moment before she nodded her head lightly and smiled. In that case, it's not that you don't want to know Zhong Hong, but you want him to have his own understanding? Zhong Lian, come over here. At this moment, a cold voice drifted over. Zhong Lian inclined his head only to see a young man staring in his direction as he called out to him. This young man stared at Qin Wentian, his gaze filled with coldness. Zhong Lian stuck out his tongue, after which he glanced at Qin Wentian as he spoke in a low voice. "I'll go first." Qin Wentian turned his gaze over only to see Zhong Peng and Zhong Hong appearing behind the young man, both of them staring in the direction of Qin Wentian. Zhong Hong's countenance turned cold as he spoke. "If I were you, I would give up my position as the sword's son." Qin Wentian stared at Zhong Hong as he lightly shook his head. His countenance turned serious as he stated, "As a swordsman, only with a righteous heart can one wield the sword. You insulted me several times, but I didn't hold it against you. When you came to visit me, I told you to comprehend your own path, yet you slandered me behind my back. With such a character, how can you cultivate the sword? As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wenin took a step forward as a surge of sword might gushed forth. His eyes were as sharp as swords, and in that instant, Zhong Hong felt his entire body trembling. Qin Wentian's voice pierced right into his heart, wanting to crush his sword heart. As a swordsman, you should focus your heart on the sword. With a strong sword heart and a strong sword Dao, the identity of a swordsman is dispensable. What's the point of having it? And you've fallen into a demonic barrier. Zhong Hong, ask yourself, how can you be worthy of the sword in your hand? Qin Wenin coldly spoke again, his gaze sharper than before, causing Zhong Hong's heart to tremble. Impudent! A voice thundered as a middle-aged man's sword intent gushed forth, enveloping Qin Wenin. This man's hair fluttered in the wind as he stared at Qin Wenin. As the sword's son, do you feel very proud to bully Zhong Hong? Elder. The people around him all bowed slightly when they saw the person who just arrived. This elder was none other than Zhong Hong's father. He was the one who came to meet the clan lord, wanting to revoke Qin Wentian's position as the sword's son. Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto the person who just arrived. This elder's cultivation base was at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. As the sword's son, you used your strength to bully the weak. Zhong Hong personally came to seek guidance from you, yet you expelled him. How can the clan lord bestow the position of the sword's son to such an arrogant disciple? This elder stepped out as a terrifying sword intent gushed forth, pressing down on Qin Wenin. However, Qin Wenin stood there calmly, his countenance as calm as ever. The position of the sword's son? Qin Wenin silently shook his head. Impossibly foolish. What did you say? That elder's voice grew even colder. Qin Wenin actually dared to talk back to him? Qin Wenin, you are too impudent. At this moment, Zhong Ping, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. He turned his gaze onto Qin Wenin as he coldly continued, it's fine if you use your strength to bully the weak, but now, you even dared to talk back to an elder. Your position as the sword's son has already incurred the wrath of the masses. I, Zhong Peng, initially wanted to strip you of your position after the battle at the sword range. However, seeing how impudent you are, I have no choice but to speak up. As the sound of his voice faded, Zhong Peng stepped out as his sword intent gushed forth. He stared at Qin Wenin. Zhong Peng, challenge you to a battle. If you win, I won't make things difficult for you. However, you have to hand over the sword's son's sword. You are not worthy. Qin Wenin turned his gaze onto Zhong Peng, before glancing at Zhong Hong, who was beside him. Zhong Hong's gaze flickered. Not only that, his earlier words had clearly touched Zhong Hong. Although Qin Wenin was arrogant, he didn't seem like a despicable person. Looking at Zhong Peng again, he had a righteous look on his face, yet it caused Qin Wenin to feel a sense of hypocrisy. You are not worthy, Qin Wenin faintly spoke, his words causing the countenances of the crowd to stiffen as they stared at Qin Wenin. What an arrogant fellow. Before Qin Wenin, Zhong Peng was the strongest contender for the position of the sword's son. And now, he issued a challenge to Qin Wenin, yet Qin Wenin said that he was not worthy. Chapter 407. Upon hearing Qin Wentian's words, Zhong Peng's sword qi grew even more intense as an ancient sword astral soul appeared above his head. 4 colored astral souls, all in the form of swords. In an instant, a surge of sword qi swept across the heavens and earth, destroying everything in its path. Qin Wentian said that Zhong Peng wasn't worthy. How powerful! The countenances of the spectators trembled. Zhong Peng was the strongest contender for the position of sword son. His 4th astral soul originated from the 5th heavenly layer and was a shadow sword. Zhong Peng's sword was formless and formless, possessing terrifying might. Yet, Qin Wentian's countenance didn't change in the slightest. In fact, he didn't even glance at Zhong Peng. His gaze was still fixed on Zhong Hong. Qin Wentian took a step forward as a stifling sword might enveloped Zhong Hong. This sword might exuded a sense of righteousness, akin to the Tao of Kings, wanting to crush Zhong Hong's sword heart. Qin Wendian stared straight at Zhong Hong. In the center of his brows, there seemed to be a third eye staring at Zhong Hong. That night, who was it that told you to look for me? As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wendian took another step forward as a tyrannical will gushed into Zhong Hong's sea of consciousness, destroying Zhong Hong's will. Zhong Hong's entire body trembled as though he was about to suffocate. He howled, "Zhong Peng! Qin Wendian, you are going too far." Zhong Peng roared in rage as he stepped forward. Qin Wendian swept a glance over as his terrifying will gushed into Zhong Hong's sea of consciousness. That terrifying third eye caused Zhong Peng's footsteps to halt abruptly. Qin Wendian stared at Zhong Hong as he faintly spoke. "As a sword cultivator, your sword heart isn't strong enough, allowing others to make use of you. Go back and reflect on your actions." As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wendian's palms trembled. Instantly, Zhong Hong's body was flung through the air by a terrifying force, directly landing on the arena far away. "Puchi!" Zhong Hong coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. At this moment, his countenance abruptly changed. That short instant earlier felt like an eternity to him. Facing against Qin Wendian, he felt as though he was facing an insurmountable mountain. The gap between him and Qin Wendian was so huge. However, Qin Wendian's voice just now was like the sound of a bell, shaking directly into his mind. If one sword heart was not firm, he would be used by others? You actually dared to bully the weak of the Zhong clan in front of me? The elder in the air was infuriated. The sword intent radiating from him grew even more terrifying. Qin Wendian raised his head to look at him. His expression did not change at all. He stared back at him like a sharp sword. "Elder, this person is so rebellious. Let me handle him." Zhong Peng drew in a deep breath as the humming of swords echoed throughout the heavens and earth. In the air, 4 astral novas radiated sword light, and in that instant, the entire heavens and earth were filled with the sound of swords whistling through the air. The spectators all retreated, not daring to get close. The sword intent was so strong that it could kill from a distance. Zhong Peng had already been in the Heavenly Dipper realm for 2 years, and had already condensed 4 astral novas. How terrifying was his combat prowess! His eyes were filled with a towering battle intent as he stared at Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian slowly turned his head, staring at Zhong Peng. Zhong Hong's actions were instigated by Zhong Peng. In that case, Zhong Hong's schemes were extremely deep. Zhong Hong wanted to seize the position of Sword Son from Zhong Peng, yet he didn't do it openly. Instead, he wanted to ruin Zhong Peng's reputation, making it hard for him to establish a foothold in the Zhong clan. Zhong Peng's character was despicable. Bang! Qin Wendian stepped out, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. A surge of kingly sword might gushed forth, and in that instant, the youths all felt the ancient swords strapped on their backs humming as they trembled unceasingly. In an instant, hundreds of swords hummed in unison. Zhong Peng pointed out with his finger, and instantly, 4 astral novas shot forward. However, at this instant, Qin Wendian took another step forward as the ancient swords strapped on his back rose up into the air. The kingly sword might of the kingly sword might swept over everything, causing the 4 astral novas to tremble violently in the air, unable to advance any further. Such a bizarre scene caused the eyes of the spectators to narrow as their countenances were filled with terror. How is this possible? The scene before their eyes was unbelievable. Even for Zhong Peng, his gaze froze as the boundless sword might around him froze. His astral novas seemed to be met with a formless resistance, unable to advance any further. "Die!" Zhong Peng howled in rage. His finger pressed down, and instantly, the sword might gushed forth, converging onto the 4 astral novas as they continued to press forward. However, at this moment, Qin Wendian took another step forward. This simple step seemed to fuse together with the sword chi of the heavens and earth as one. He was the origin of the 10,000 swords, he was the sovereign of the Tao of the sword. Rumble! A fearsome will of sword might gushed forth from Qin Wendian, causing Zhong Peng's 4 astral novas to stagnate once again. Such a scene caused Zhong Peng to lose all face. With a howl of rage, he soared through the air, appearing in front of his 4 astral novas as the will of his sword will frenziedly erupted forth. With a wave of his palms, a screen of swords appeared, enveloping the astral novas as a resplendent light erupted forth, so bright that it was as though the sun was about to rise. With your character, you are not worthy of me unsheathing my sword. Just when he was at the peak of his cultivation, Qin Wenyin had actually shattered his astral novas in front of everyone. You, how venomous! Zhong Peng's voice was as cold as the netherworld itself. Qin Wenyin laughed. You schemed against me, ruined my reputation, and even challenged me. Now that you have such an ending, you only have yourself to blame. You are not fit to be a member of the Zhong clan. At this moment, silence filled the entire space. The hearts of everyone were pounding wildly. They were still in a daze, staring at Zhong Peng. Zhong Peng's astral novas were shattered by Qin Wenyin. Not only that, from the start till the end, Qin Wenyin hadn't even unsheathed his sword. Qin Wenyin dealt with Zhong Peng as easily as he dealt with Zhong Hong. At this moment, Zhong Hong was sitting on the ground, staring at the scene in front of him with disbelief. That day, Zhong Peng's words made him sigh with regret. Qin Wenyin was a narrow-minded person, far inferior to Zhong Peng. In the future, Zhong Peng would definitely seize the position of sword son from Qin Wenyin. But now, the truth was laid out before his eyes. At the same cultivation level, Zhong Peng was completely suppressed. This caused Zhong Hong to ponder. Did he do something wrong? Was Zhong Peng really making use of him? That day, Qin Wenyin wasn't arrogant at all. At the start, he told Zhong Hong to comprehend the ancient scroll and walk his own path. Qin Wentian's sword Dao was so tyrannical, how could it not be his own path? Now that he thought about it, Zhong Hong felt a sense of inferiority when he looked at that young man. That young man seemed to be even younger than him. Qin Wentian's attainments in the Dao of the sword had already caused everyone to be convinced. But strength was strength. He actually crippled Zhong Peng. No matter what, Zhong Peng was a member of the Zhong clan. He, Qin Wenyin, was just an outsider. What made people even more speechless was that earlier, that elder had ordered Qin Wenyin to stop, yet Qin Wenyin still destroyed Zhong Peng with a single finger strike. At that time, that elder wanted to save Zhong Peng, but it was already too late. At this moment he stood in front of Zhong Peng's shattered astral nova, staring down at Qin Wenyin with disdain. His gaze was like countless sharp swords, wanting to pierce through Qin Wenyin. An intense killing intent gushed forth from him. Very good. Seems like I'll have to help the clan lord clean up the clan. That elder's body trembled as his killing intent gushed forth. His aura was many times more tyrannical compared to Zhong Peng. Qin Wenyin didn't bother to conceal his gaze as he coldly stated, I wonder if Zhong Peng crippled me earlier, would elder clean up the clan? That elder slowly stepped out, his killing intent was extremely terrifying. Qin Wenyin laughed. With a clap of his hands, the sword son's sword materialized in the air. With a wave of his hand, the sword son's sword flew out and hovered in the air. I've angered elder, so elder wanted to kill me. But as the sword son, Zhong Peng offended me, going against his superiors. What's wrong with me crippling him? Qin Wenyin laughed. Since this is the case, I'll use the sword son's sword as a witness. I truly want to see how you plan to kill me. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wenyin stepped out, his body floating in the air. He actually wanted to directly oppose an elder. This scene caused the eyes of the surrounding crowd to freeze once again, while their hearts were pounding non-stop. Chapter 408. In the air, sword qi permeated the air. Qin Wenyin stared at the Zhong clan elder as a fearsome battle intent gushed forth from him. This person could effortlessly suppress and cripple Zhong Peng, who was at the same level as him. And now, he was directly facing the elder. The elder stared at Qin Wenyin as he coldly spoke, Good, good. I truly want to see what capabilities you have. As the sound of his voice faded, A sword-type astral nova manifested, floating above his head. This astral nova contained a terrifying sword might. Numerous sword threads revolved around it, as though each and every one of them was capable of killing. Not only that, the speed of these sword threads was extremely terrifying. They were like beams of light shuttling through the air, akin to dazzling sword light. He stepped towards Qin Wenyan. Instantly, the sword threads grew even more resplendent, all of them pointing towards Qin Wenyan. It was as though with just a single thought from him, he would be able to kill Qin Wenyan. Within Qin Wenyan's body, a whistling sound could be heard. In an instant, the sound of a sword keening could be heard as an incomparably resplendent sword of the King Dao floated above his head. This sword was incomparably resplendent. Just a single glance at it was enough to tell that it was a supremely sharp sword. It was as though every part of it was condensed from the essence of swords. The spectators had never seen such a fearsome astral nova before. Not only that, this sword actually exuded the might of kings, as though it wanted to shatter all swords in its path. Is this his astral nova? How powerful! The hearts of the spectators trembled. Even the astral nova of the elder didn't have the same might as Qin Wenyan's. In fact, it felt as though his astral nova was being suppressed. Qin Wenyan stared at the elder, his countenance cold. The astral nova of the elder was trembling slightly, humming incessantly. Such a scene caused the other party's face to turn pale. He waved his hand, and in an instant, thousands of sword silks turned into the light of the way of the sword, sweeping towards Qin Wenyan as if to wrap Qin Wenyan within. Qin Wenyan's countenance turned cold as he similarly pointed out with his finger. Instantly, his astral nova slashed out, landing between the two of them as the humming of swords echoed out, resembling the cries of demonic beasts. A screen of light manifested, blocking the countless sword strands. Only the astral nova in the middle was able to suppress the sword strands, as though everything was on the verge of stopping. I want to see just how strong you are to accuse my elder without distinguishing right from wrong. Qin Wenyan snorted as another rumbling sound echoed out from his body. Instantly, another astral nova appeared. This was none other than his third astral nova. This astral nova was also in the form of an astral soul. It was towering and majestic, resembling an incomparably tyrannical ancient demon. Its demonic chi towered up to the heavens, and as it took a step forward, the entire space around it trembled. What a terrifying demonic chi! The countenances of the crowd turned sluggish. Qin Wenyan had just broken through to Heavenly Dipper, yet his two astral novas were already so tyrannical. The pressure they exuded was sufficient to crush the astral novas of others. Go! Qin Wenyan pushed out with his palms once more. His terrifying astral nova emitted a draconic roar as the astral nova slashed out. A supreme king might gushed forth, causing the astral nova of that elder to tremble unstably. At this moment, he finally understood why Qin Wenyan could shatter Zongpeng's astral nova before he even unsheathed it. This was the suppression of astral novas. Qin Wenyan's astral nova was a tier higher than the others. At this moment, in the surroundings, many members of the Zong clan were spectating this battle. Earlier, this elder had arrogantly declared that he would kill Qin Wenyan, cleaning up the Zong clan. Now that he was riding a tiger, it was hard for him to dismount. No matter what, he had to win this battle. If not, how could he maintain his prestige as an elder? A terrifying light flashed in his eyes as the astral novas in his body gushed forth one after another. An even more powerful will erupted forth as the two of them clashed head-on. Impudent! A thunderous roar thundered down from the heavens, causing the blood and chi of the spectators to churn wildly. This roar was akin to the sound of thunder, causing their minds to be in a daze for a moment. The aura of battle between Qin Wenyan and that elder abruptly dissipated. That terrifying might which had just been condensed from chi dissipated into nothingness under the might of that thunderous roar. In the air, a group of silhouettes walked over. The gazes of the spectators inclined their heads, only to see a group of elders accompanying the Zong clan lord. Clan Lord Zong swept his gaze downwards, landing onto that elder. Clan Lord. Zhong Peng made use of Zhong Hong to seek guidance from the Sword Sun, and Qin Wen didn't make things difficult for him. In the Zhong clan, Zhong Hong tarnished the reputation of the Sword Sun, yet you, as an elder, didn't even investigate the truth, wanting to cripple the Sword Sun. I didn't say anything in consideration of your face as an elder, but who would have thought that you didn't know the gravity of the situation and actually wanted to clean up the Zhong clan? Who are you cleaning up the Zhong clan for? Although Zhong Yi was usually imposing, he had always been gentle in front of others. But at this moment, there was a faint trace of rage in his eyes. Momentarily, the entire space fell silent, as though they were shocked by the aura Zhong Yi was exuding. Although that elder wasn't convinced in his heart, he lowered his head and didn't dare to talk back. After all, not only was there a difference in seniority between him and Zhong Yi was also the clan lord while he was merely an elder. Zhong Peng's heart isn't righteous, Qin Wen's actions are not to be pursued. Also, from today onwards, no one is to interfere with the actions of Sword Sun Qin Wen. Zhong Yi coldly spoke. After which, he turned to Zhong Hong as he continued, Zhong Hong, I've always known that your heart is righteous, but your temperament isn't strong enough, making it easy for others to make use of you. From now on, I'll strip you of your identity as the Sword Sun. Go into closed-door seclusion and reflect on your actions. Yes, clan lord. Zhong Hong bowed to Zhong Yi. Earlier, when he saw Qin Wentian's tyrannical strength, he was deeply moved. He knew that from the start, Qin Wenyan couldn't be bothered to bother with him. Given Qin Wentian's temperament, he wouldn't even care about Zhong Hong's existence. If not, with his provocations back then, given Qin Wentian's strength, Qin Wenyan would have easily killed him with a single palm strike. The matters today shall end here. No one is allowed to pursue this matter. All of you better make your preparations. 5 days from now, the battle for the sword range will begin. Don't only know how to flaunt your might. After speaking, Zhong Yi flicked his sleeves and departed. From the start until the end, he hadn't spoken a single word to Qin Wenyan. However, everyone could clearly see that Zhong Yi was extremely trusting of Qin Wenyan and was obviously biased towards him. However, Qin Wentian's strength had truly broadened their horizons. He even dared to challenge an elder. At this moment, the spectators couldn't help but to think that if Qin Wenyan had participated in the sword range battle, their Zhong clan might have had a chance to win. For this generation of disciples, the Heavenly Sword sect and the Li clan were both extremely powerful. On the contrary, the Zhong clan's disciples weren't outstanding enough. Although the members of the Zhong clan often consoled themselves, they didn't think too highly of their chances of winning the sword range battle. But now, there seemed to be a ray of hope. Qin Wentian's heart trembled slightly as his astral nova returned to his body, shrinking back into his yuanfu. He glanced at the elder before him before turning and departing the area. It was as though this matter couldn't cause him to waver in the slightest. Count yourself lucky. That elder's countenance turned ashen as he similarly retracted his astral nova. However, he couldn't help but spit out a cold voice, as though if the sect leader didn't appear, Qin Wenyan would definitely suffer a calamity. Qin Wenyan continued walking away with his back facing him, ignoring him. In order to preserve some face, the other party spat out such words. However, if the two of them truly fought, Qin Wenyan knew that the one at a disadvantage would definitely not be him. However, the spectators all had a question in their hearts. If the sect leader didn't appear earlier, who would be the victor? Qin Wentian's astral nova was extremely terrifying, and the elder had an absolute advantage in terms of cultivation base. If they truly fought, the ending would be hard to say. However, the elder with an advantage of 2 levels would have a higher chance of winning. Naturally, there would never be an answer to this question. Qin Wenyan is so powerful. Zhong Lian stared at the departing silhouette of Qin Wenyan as a brilliant light flashed in her eyes. That battle earlier had truly shocked her. The sect leader truly had good judgment. No wonder he would personally select Qin Wenyan as the Sword Sun. This matter caused an intense commotion in the Zhong clan. Although Zhong Peng's kin hated Qin Wenyan in their hearts, the sect leader had already said that no one dared to pursue him. However, for those who had witnessed the battle, they had already forgotten about the matter of Zhong Hong tarnishing Qin Wentian's reputation. They only remembered the glory of Qin Wentian's battle. That tyrannical battle had left them with an extremely deep impression. Without unsheathing his sword, he crippled Zhong Peng. Facing against an elder, he didn't show any signs of weakness and actually stepped out to battle. Such a character was truly extraordinary. Many of the younger generations even had feelings of worship for Qin Wentian and would frequently visit Qin Wentian's residence to seek guidance. Qin Wentian didn't reject anyone and would chat with them about matters regarding cultivation. These youths would often benefit greatly from their conversations, and when they returned, they would share this information with their elder brothers and elders. For a period of time, Qin Wentian's reputation in the Zhong clan was unrivaled among the younger generations. Such a situation was something that even Qin Wentian himself had never imagined. In the blink of an eye, 5 days passed. Today, in the training grounds of the Zhong clan, several silhouettes gathered. On the tall platform, the clan leader, Zhong Yi, personally stood there, looking down at the people below. The Battle of the Sword Range concerns the rights to mine the Sword Range for the next 10 years. I hope that this time around, our Zhong clan will be able to obtain victory. Zhong Yi slowly spoke, after which, with a wave of his hand, an ancient sword appeared beneath his feet. Those from the Zhong clan who wish to spectate the Battle of the Sword Range, feel free to proceed. Let's move out. Zhong Yi's voice was indifferent as he stepped onto the ancient sword. Instantly, the ancient sword soared up into the skies, flying towards the horizons. Everyone took out their swords, and for a moment, the entire training grounds were filled with sword qi. Numerous silhouettes soared through the air, creating a magnificent sight. The person at the very front was none other than the clan leader, Zhong Yi. Those beside him were the doyens of the Zhong clan, and a step further behind were the elders. Qin Wentian stood a step behind the elders, leading the way. He stood on the ancient sword with his hands clasped behind his back, exuding an incomparably calm demeanor. The gazes of several people landed on him. Most probably, the crux of this battle would be on the Sword Sun. Outside the Sword Reverence City, a group of people from the Zhong clan soared through the air. In another direction, a towering sword might also appeared. Both parties stared at each other as a formless sword intent converged in the air. The other party was none other than the Li clan, one of the 3 transcendent powers of the Sword Reverence City. They had arrived as well. The leader of the younger generation of the Li clan was none other than Li Ran. For the battle of the Heavenly Dipper Sovereigns, he would definitely be the one to act. Behind him, there were several others who were staring at the young men from the Zhong clan with hints of provocation in their eyes. Chapter 409. The person in the lead was none other than the clan lord of the Li clan, Li Zhentian. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared in Zhong Yi's direction. He then turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian, who was following closely behind Zhong Yi and the other elders. Is this man the sword son that your Zhong clan chose? As the sound of his voice faded, the other members of the Li clan all turned their gazes onto Qin Wentian. This young man was the closest to the Zhong clan's clan lord, Zhong Yi. His status must be extraordinary, and there was a high possibility that he was the sword son chosen by the Zhong clan to participate in the battle for the sword range. Li Ran and Li Nian had met Qin Wentian before. Li Nian spoke. This man is the one who comprehended the way of swords in the Sword Reverence Cliff back then. The last time I met him, he denied that he was invited by the Zhong clan to the Sword Reverence City. So it turns out that he was afraid of death. If it wasn't for Zhong Qian taking out his divine weapon, this man would already be a dead man. An expression of interest appeared on Li Zhentian's face as he coldly laughed. The Zhong clan is getting weaker and weaker. Zhong Yi merely glanced at him, not bothering to retort. Winning the battle for the sword range was the most important thing. Qin Wentian didn't even bother to glance at Li Nian. Back then, if it wasn't for the fact that he was a newcomer and didn't want to bicker with Li Nian wouldn't have appeared here today. Who would have thought that this woman would still be so arrogant even after seeing him? If it wasn't for me sacrificing my divine weapon, The one who died wouldn't be Brother Qin, but you and your genius brother Li Ran instead. Zhong Qian coldly spoke. Right now, who in the Zhong clan didn't know of Qin Wentian's strength? The other members of the Zhong clan all laughed coldly as they stared at Li Nian. Who doesn't know how to spout nonsense? I hope you guys still have the confidence to do so during the battle for the sword range. Li Nian mocked. You're right. Everyone knows how to spout nonsense. The members of my Zhong clan won't argue with you. Let's see if you still have the face to smile when the time comes. Zhong Qian didn't back down as he retorted. In the sword-reverent city, the three major powers were the hegemons. Because of the battle for the sword range, they were as incompatible as fire and water. Qin Wen is really calm. Those from the Zhong clan glanced at Qin Wenin as they mused in their hearts that Li Nian would definitely feel as though she had slapped herself in the face during the contest for the sword range. The two forces gradually separated. Not long after, they arrived at the cliff. They flew down and rushed into the cliff. At the bottom of the precipice, in the outer perimeter of the sword range, there was actually a battle platform erected there. The experts from the Heavenly Sword sect stood on one end of the precipice, each of them clad in green robes and had ancient swords strapped to their backs, exuding an extraordinary aura. When they saw the experts from the Li and Zhong clan arriving, a surge of sword intent gushed forth, permeating the air. Even before the battle began, the sharpness of the sword intent had already been revealed. Those from the Li clan and Zhong clan respectively landed in a different location. The three great powers formed a triangular formation. Li Zhentian and Zhong each took a step forward. In the direction of the Heavenly Sword sect, the sect leader of the Heavenly Sword sect, Jian Wuyo, also walked out. He stared at the two of them as he spoke. Two clan leaders, how have you been? Li Zhentian lightly waved his hand as he spoke. Sect leader Wuyo, there's no need to reminisce about the past. The Heavenly Sword sect has already controlled the rights to the sword range for the next 10 years. The next battle will determine the ownership of the sword range for the next 10 years. Are the rules of the battle still the same as before? The three major powers of the sword-reverent city were all very powerful, yet none of them could suppress the other two. If not, they would have long started a war to dominate the sword-reverent city. And precisely because of this balance, the methods used by the three major powers in the contest for the sword range were much gentler. They would use the battles between their disciples to determine the ownership of the sword range for the next 10 years. None of them wanted to break this balance. As for the rules of the previous battles, each of the three major powers would choose 3 participants. The participants could not be above the age of 30, and they were not allowed to borrow the power of divine weapons. 2 would be at the peak of Yuan Fu, and 1 would be at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. There would be 3 rounds of battles, and for each round, the participants chosen by the 3 major powers would stand on the battle platform. The one who remained standing at the end would be the victor. For the 3 rounds, if one of the 3 powers obtained 2 victories, they would be able to directly control the sword range for the next 10 years. If each of the 3 powers obtained 1 victory, it would depend on who was the victor in the battle for the Heavenly Dipper realm. Hence, the battle for the Heavenly Dipper realm was the most crucial. In this place, not only the 3 major powers were present. In the faraway regions, atop the precipitous cliffs, many silhouettes could be seen. They would either be alone or in groups, spectating the battle here. The battle between the 3 transcendent powers wasn't a small matter in the sword-reverent city. Every 10 years, the 3 transcendent powers would do their best to nurture 3 young geniuses. From a certain perspective, this battle could be said to be the pinnacle of all geniuses of the same generation. Let's follow the original rules. Zhong Yi calmly spoke. Those behind him all had smiles on their faces. With the sword Sun Qin Wentian present, the battle for the Heavenly Dipper realm would definitely be theirs. As for the other 2 battles, as long as they didn't lose out to one party, it would be considered a victory. Seems like both the Li and Zhong clan are very confident. The spectators silently mused when they saw Li Zhentian and Zhong expressing their stance. However, according to the rumors, the strongest power should be the Heavenly Sword sect. The Heavenly Sword sect had produced a few outstanding geniuses that were all extremely powerful. Fine, I will respect the opinions of the two clan leaders. Let's follow the old rules. Jian Han, you go for the first battle. Jian Wuyo, the sect leader of the Heavenly Sword sect, spoke. A moment later, a figure exuding an aura of coldness and sharpness permeated the air, incomparably tyrannical. Li Nian, you go. The clan leader of the Li clan, Li Zhentian, calmly spoke. Momentarily, Li Nian's silhouette flickered as she similarly descended on the stone platform. Zhong Qian, you go first. Zhong Yi ordered. The three of them all appeared on the stone platform. This scene caused the spectators to feel bewildered. Jian Han's combat prowess was very high, but Li Nian from the Li clan shouldn't be the best candidate. Wasn't it a little unwise to actually send her out for the first battle? What made the spectators even more bewildered was that Jian Han and Li Nian actually joined forces and made the first move against Zhong Qian. You guys? Zhong Qian's countenance turned cold as he released his astral souls. However, a wave of coldness already bore down on him as a sword light flashed past. Li Nian used her movement technique to seal off Zhong Qian's path of retreat. Her sword flashed as specks of cold light shimmered in the air. Zhong Qian wasn't someone easy to deal with either. With a flick of his finger, a gigantic sword materialized and abruptly slashed towards Jian Han's sword. The might of his sword was akin to that of a mountain, wanting to suppress Jian Han's sword. At the same time, he stood at his original location and blasted out a palm imprint filled with immense might. Puchi! A light sound rang out. The spectators only saw Jian Han tilting his body, ignoring Zhong Qian's sword, allowing his opponent to land a direct hit on his body. However, his ice-cold sword swept towards Zhong Qian's throat. Zhong Qian's life and death depended on a single thought. Retracting his left hand, Zhong Qian clamped down on the tip of Jian Han's sword. At the same time, a palm imprint slammed into his body, instantly ripping apart his robes. The terrifying sword qi directly pierced into his body, causing the countenances of those from the Zhong clan to stiffen. Die! Jian Han and the rest had all comprehended second-level mandates. A sword light akin to flowing water swept past. There was simply no way to block it. Zhong Qian hurriedly retreated, directly off the platform. Only then did he manage to avoid being struck by that sword. Boo! Drawing in a deep breath, Zhong Qian's countenance turned ashen. Even at the risk of being injured, Jian Han still wanted to blast him off the platform. After which, the spectators only saw the injured Jian Han suppressing Li Nian with overwhelming superiority. Such a scene caused the spectators to feel somewhat bewildered. The Li clan sent Li Nian out, yet Li Nian and Jian Han joined forces to deal with Zhong Qian. This was equivalent to gifting the Heavenly Sword sect a victory. The Li clan has reached an agreement with the Heavenly Sword sect. The countenances of the spectators froze. Zhong Yi had already predicted this. And indeed, for the next battle, the Li clan sent out one of the stronger participants, while the Heavenly Sword sect sent out one of the weaker participants. This already indicated that the Heavenly Sword sect would give the victory to the Li clan. After the battle started, the Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect directly acted against the participants from the Zhong clan, eliminating the participant from the Zhong clan. After which, the Li clan obtained their second victory. The Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect each won one round. Despicable! What a good Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect, to actually use such despicable methods. The members of the Zhong clan were all enraged as they coldly spoke. However, their clan lord Zhong Yi's countenance was calm. He merely glanced at his opponents and stated, "Clan Lord Li and sect leader Jian seem to be having a lot of fun." Jian Wuyo glanced at Zhong Yi, but before he could say anything, a mocking expression appeared on Li Zhentian's face as he interjected, "The members of this generation from the Zhong clan are the weakest. They basically don't have the qualifications to contend for the authority to control the sword range." For the previous two battles, the Zhong clan was directly eliminated. This can be considered as saving face for your Zhong clan. For this battle, the members of the Zhong clan have no qualifications to participate. Li Zhentian's words clearly indicated that he looked down on the members of the younger generation from the Zong clan. They joined forces not because they feared the Zong clan, but rather, they felt that the Zong clan didn't have the qualifications to contend for the authority to control the sword range. As for the Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect, they had absolute confidence in their Heavenly Dipper sword sons. Hence, they decided to bet the authority to control the sword range on the next battle. As for the Zong clan, they were excluded by the two major powers. Such disregard caused the members of the Zong clan to be incomparably enraged. The Li clan was too much of a bully. Zong Yi stared at the arrogant Li Zhentian as calm as ever. The members of this generation from the Zong clan were truly lacking in comparison. Jian Feng from the Heavenly Sword sect and Li Ran from the Li clan were both extremely powerful. No wonder they were so confident and wanted to leave the final battle to Li Ran and Jian Feng. Because of the existence of these two, the Heavenly Sword sect and the Li clan didn't even bother to pay attention to the Zong clan. If not, they would have already discovered that an extremely powerful sword son had appeared in the Zong clan. Jian Feng, it's all up to you now. Jian Wuyo stared at the person behind him. This person was none other than the young man Qin Wenyin had sensed back then. Jian Feng, sword son of the Heavenly Sword sect, 29 years of age, first level of Heavenly Dipper, outstanding talent. Li Ran, decide your battle with him today, Li Zhentian calmly stated. For the next 10 years, the authority to control the sword range absolutely couldn't fall into the hands of the Heavenly Sword sect. Jian Feng and Li Ran both landed on the stone platform in the center. Although there was no aura erupting from them, just by standing there casually, everyone could already feel the sharpness of their swords. It was as though they were swords. Qin Wenyan, step out. Zong Yi from the Zong clan spoke. Qin Wenyan nodded his head lightly as he stepped out. At this moment, the gazes of the members of the Zong clan were all focused on Qin Wenyan. Before this, they had all looked down on this young man. But now, upon seeing Qin Wenyan stepping out, a surge of hot blood gushed forth from their hearts. The humiliation of the Li clan, the disregard of the Heavenly Sword sect, was right before their eyes. The sword's son, Qin Wenyan, would definitely wash away this humiliation for the Zong clan. Chapter 410. The battle between Qin Wenyan and Zong Peng was witnessed by the members of the Zong clan. Tyrannical, Qin Wenyan didn't even need to use his sword to destroy Zong Peng's astral nova. Although Li Nian and Jian Feng were much stronger compared to Zong Peng, could they be the same as Qin Wenyan, suppressing Zong Peng? Right now, the only thing the Zong clan was worried about was that Li Nian and Jian Feng would use their strongest methods to deal with Qin Wenyan. Who is this person? On the precipice, the gazes of several people landed on Qin Wenyan. They had never heard of Qin Wentian's name before, but right now, when they saw the members of the Zong clan, their gazes were filled with fanaticism. It was as though the members of the Zong clan were extremely confident in this young man. They believed that he would be able to defeat Li Ran and Jian Feng. At this moment, there were also people who recognized Qin Wenyan. Back then when Qin Wenyan was cultivating his sword, many of them had seen him before. Right now, they couldn't help but to sigh in admiration. So it turned out that this young man was actually a helper invited by the Zong clan. However, in front of Li Ran and Jian Feng, no matter how powerful this young man was, he could only be a spectator. There was nothing he could do. You actually participated in the battle for the Heavenly Dipper realm? At this moment, in the direction of the Li clan, Li Nian's eyes flashed with astonishment as she stared at Qin Wenyan. Li Nian, if it wasn't for Brother Qin not wanting to be calculative with you that day, do you think you would still be here? Zong Qian coldly snorted. Li Ran's eyes also turned over, landing onto Qin Wenyan as a look of disdain could be seen on his face. You can go down yourself. This battle was between him and Jian Feng. He had been anticipating this battle for a long time. Hence, the Heavenly Sword sect and the Li clan came to an agreement, directly eliminating the Zong clan. Their victory or defeat would be determined by the battle between Li Ran and Jian Feng. Jian Feng also glanced at Qin Wenyan, his countenance incomparably calm. This young man seemed to be the one who cultivated in the cavern on the precipice outside the sword range that night. However, he only casually glanced at him before shifting his gaze back to Li Ran. Just like what Li Ran had thought, this battle had nothing to do with Qin Wenyan at all. Of course, it would be best for him to walk on his own. Qin Wenyan stood there quietly. Although he had already broken through to the Heavenly Dipper realm, he wouldn't feel any pressure fighting someone on the same level as him. Back then in the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, there were so many geniuses at the peak of Grand Xia, including demon-level geniuses from the various transcendent powers. Yet he didn't fear them all, claiming the top position. And now, in the Sword Reverend City, if it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to help the Zhong clan seize control of the sword range, he wouldn't even have participated in this battle. To him, this battle did not have much meaning. The calm Qin Wenyan acted as though he hadn't heard Li Ran's words. Li Ran, who was currently facing off against Jian Feng, frowned as a cold light erupted forth, sweeping towards Qin Wenyan. His narrowed eyes gradually turned sharp, and with a shrill whistle, the ancient sword on his back instantly floated in front of him, bringing with it a humming sound as it pointed towards Qin Wenyan. You shouldn't have participated in this battle. It's already a mistake for you to do so. Earlier, I gave you a chance, you should have cherished it. This is your second mistake. Li Ran faintly spoke. After which, he turned to Jian Feng and continued, You and I won't bully him. Let's see who will be the first to slay this external helper of the Zhong clan. How about it? After hearing this, Jian Feng stared at Qin Wenyan as he spoke. You aren't his opponent. You can go down by yourself. In the Sword Reverend City, at the same cultivation level, Jian Feng had never met a worthy opponent before. Only Li Ran of the Li clan, whose talent was rumored to be exceedingly outstanding. Back when he was still at Yuanfu, the sect leader of the Heavenly Sword sect had already conferred him the title of Sword Son. Cultivating the sword for so many years, his sword heart was incomparably resolute. He believed that in the Sword Reverend City, there was no one at the same cultivation level as him who could defeat him. Since you aren't willing to act, I will deal with him first before fighting against you. Li Ran saw that Jian Feng was giving a chance to Qin Wenyan, yet he didn't want to give it to him. His palms grasped onto the sword in front of him, and instantly, his body straightened up, as straight as a sword as he advanced towards Qin Wenyan. Rays of resplendent light radiated from the sword, so bright that the spectators couldn't even open their eyes. His entire sword was as dazzling as the blazing sun. The wind gusted, the light radiated. The spectators only saw Li Ran's silhouette transforming into a beam of sword light. Those with weaker cultivation couldn't help but raise their hands, shielding their eyes. How could Li Ran's sword be so resplendent, like the blazing sun? Sword light flashed, and in that instant, Li Ran's sword slashed downwards. Instantly, an intense light enveloped Qin Wenyan's surroundings, and as this intense light flashed past, a bone-piercing chill could be felt in the hearts of those who saw it. Li Ran's sword, slicing the throat with a single strike. It was rumored that Li Ran from the Li clan rarely used his sword because of his pride and disdain. But today, in the contest for the sword range, he was going to fight against Jian Feng. Hence, his sword bloomed in a dazzling manner. Using the sword son of the Zhong clan as a sacrifice to his sword. Although the light was too intense, the spectators still stared ahead at Qin Wenyan, wanting to see Li Ran's life-reaping sword clearly. The lips of those from the Li clan curled up in arrogance. Li Nian even had a look of disdain in her eyes. The moment the sword descended, it would be the moment Qin Wenyan died. The spectators only saw Qin Wenyan closing his eyes as his sword abruptly unsheathed with the speed of a bolt of lightning. Qin Wenyan lifted his hands slightly as the sword landed in his hands. His movements were incomparably light and practiced. He didn't even bother to evade the incoming sword strike. Such a fast sword strike only needed the blink of an eye to claim his life. Li Ran was fast, but so was Qin Wenyan. How could his sword not be fast? Qin Wenyan's palms trembled as the keening of a sword rang out. It was as though his sword had merely trembled slightly, yet the spectators could already see Qin Wenyan being slain by the sword light. Even those from the Zhong clan were stunned. Qin Wenyan actually didn't even bother to evade? There was no way he could evade such a sword strike. As the sword light descended, Qin Wenyan's silhouette was slashed apart, causing many to be stunned. Those from the Zhong clan felt their bodies turning cold, while the others felt that this was nothing out of the ordinary. Li Nian's lips curled up even higher. Emichim? At this moment, a strange scene appeared. They saw an afterimage appearing beside Li Ran. This afterimage elongated and appeared 2 steps behind Li Ran. As for the silhouette of Li Ran's sword light, it had already vanished. What Li Ran slashed at was only an afterimage. This, how fast? The crowd drew in a breath of cold air. Li Ran's sword strike had missed. The sword intent dissipated, and the sword light disappeared. Qin Wenyan was still standing there with his back facing Li Ran. The spectators were all staring at him, wanting to see if Qin Wenyan was injured or not. Li Ran slowly turned around, yet Qin Wenyan still hadn't moved an inch. This caused the spectators to sigh. It seemed like Qin Wenyan had failed to evade that sword strike. How is this possible? A hoarse voice rang out from Li Ran's mouth. After which, a bloody wound appeared on his throat as fresh blood gushed out unceasingly. In that instant, the gazes of the spectators froze as expressions of terror appeared on their faces. Li Ran's silhouette slowly collapsed onto the ground. The keening of the sword, Qin Wenyan died. When sword cultivators clashed, the sword wind was the most dangerous. A single misstep could result in the throat being slashed apart. Li Ran had always been arrogant, wanting Qin Wenyan to walk down the platform by himself, yet his throat was slashed apart by a single sword strike. The sword son of the Li clan had fallen. A wave of coldness enveloped Li Nian's body. She stared at the scene in front of her in shock, as though she didn't dare to believe that this was real. Staring at the silhouette of Qin Wenyan, her body couldn't help but tremble. Those from the Li clan all had ashen expressions on their faces. They had reached an agreement with the Heavenly Sword sect because they wanted Li Ran to fight against Jian Feng, seizing control of the sword range. But now, their Li clan had already been eliminated, and they had even lost a sword son. Excellent! Sword son Qin Wen. The eyes of those from the Zhong clan flickered with a fanatical light. The nervousness and disappointment they felt earlier had completely vanished, replaced by a surge of hot-bloodedness. This sword strike was too magnificent, sweeping away all the humiliation the Zhong clan had suffered earlier, ruthlessly slapping the face of the Li clan. Earlier, the arrogant words spoken by the clan lord of the Li clan, Li Zhentian, rang out in their ears. Li clan lord, don't be too full of yourself. Zhong Yi faintly spoke, his words causing Li Zhentian's eyes to gleam with a terrifying light as he stared at Qin Wenyan on the platform. Take care of this. Li Zhentian waved his hands, and a moment later, someone came to collect Li Ran's corpse. The 3 parties had agreed that in the contest of the sword range, life and death would be determined by fate. Li Ran wanted to kill Qin Wenyan first, yet he was killed instead. On the cliff, the spectators all had strange expressions on their faces. It seemed like the Zhong clan had long been prepared for this. The Li clan had initially wanted to fight against the Heavenly Sword sect for the 10 years' worth of control over the sword range. Who would have thought that they would end up benefiting the Zhong clan instead? As long as the Zhong clan won this battle, the control over the sword range would belong to them. The gazes of the spectators shifted back to Qin Wenyan, only to see him inclining his head slightly, staring at Jian Feng as he spoke. You, get down from the platform. Qin Wenyan's voice was extremely calm, without any fluctuations. Earlier, Jian Feng told him to get down, and now he was returning the same words to him. However, the situation was different now. Before this, everyone felt that there was no need to doubt Jian Feng's words. But now, the situation was reversed. Killing Li Ran with a single sword strike. Although Jian Feng was the one with the highest talent in the Heavenly Sword sect, would he be able to fight against the sword son of the Zhong clan? That day at the bottom of the cliff, the female cultivator who said that Qin Wenyan only had a superficial appearance and that his swordsmanship was weak couldn't help but feel a sense of surrealism in her heart. That was her senior brother Jian Feng, whom she admired. And now, this person whom she had humiliated for having weak swordsmanship actually told her senior brother Jian Feng to get down from the platform. Sword keening, sword shadows appearing. What sword will you comprehend? Jian Feng asked. The sword intent he sensed caused him to feel a chill in his heart. I don't know what other people refer to this as. Maybe it's the will of sword melody. Qin Wentian faintly replied. Jian Feng nodded his head. Sword keening, sword melody, it's indeed suitable. If I insist on fighting against this will, I'm afraid that my ending would be the same as Li Ran's. I'm defeated. As the sound of Jian Feng's voice faded, he turned, ignoring the opinions of others, ignoring the face of the Heavenly Sword sect, and directly walked down the platform, admitting defeat. Was this because he was afraid of death? Was his sword heart not resolute enough? It was precisely because Jian Feng's sword heart was resolute that he could calmly say that if he were to fight, he would die for sure. After which, he walked down the platform. Chapter 411. The sword son of the Li clan, Li Ran, had his throat slit by a single sword. The sword son of the Heavenly Sword sect, Jian Feng, walked down the platform, conceding. The sudden turn of events caused the spectators to feel a little surreal. Today, the Li clan and the Heavenly Sword sect had reached an agreement. The final battle should have been between Li Ran and Jian Feng. Their battle would determine the ownership of the sword range. But the Zhong clan, which was previously disregarded, produced a new generation of sword sons. Using the most domineering manner, he obtained first place in the third battle. Not only that, from the start to the end, he only unleashed a single sword strike. With a single sword strike, he obtained first place, seizing control of the sword range. This victory meant that the sword range would belong to the Zhong clan for the next 10 years. The Li clan, Zhong clan and Heavenly Sword sect, each side won one. But the Zhong clan was the final victor in the battle between Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. In the end, scheming against oneself. Zhong Yi faintly spoke, his words causing many to sigh as they silently nodded in their hearts. If the Heavenly Sword sect and the Li clan didn't reach an agreement and fought for victory in the first two battles, maybe one of them would have a chance to win 2 consecutive battles. But the other 2 would have no chance at all. However, they were so confident in their own sword sons. Hence, they ignored the Zhong clan, wanting to eliminate the Zhong clan first. But in the end, they helped the Zhong clan. Such an ending, nobody would have thought of it. Qin Wentian sheathed his sword as he slowly walked back to the Zhong clan's crowd. The gazes of the Zhong clan's members were all filled with fanaticism as they stared at him. This was the sword son of the Zhong clan. At this moment, it was as though Qin Wentian's surname wasn't even mentioned by them. He had brought glory to the Zhong clan. His words were truly beautiful. In front of everyone in the sword-reverent city, he had ruthlessly slapped the faces of the Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect. However, Qin Wentian was extremely quiet, as though nothing had happened at all. To him, this battle wasn't too challenging. Even if he won, there was nothing to be proud of. He could just leave the rest to Zhong Yi, there was no need for him to worry. But after he gained control of the sword range, he could freely enter and exit the sword range and properly sense the sword intent of the demon sword. The second level of his mandate of swords was comprehended from the demon sword. Isn't it time for the Heavenly Sword sect to retreat? Zhong Yi calmly spoke. According to the rules, his Zhong clan was the victor. In that case, for the next 10 years, his Zhong clan would be in control of the sword range. The experts from the Heavenly Sword sect naturally had to retreat. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sword sect, Jian Wuyo, calmly stared at Zhong Yi as a cold smile appeared on his face. This scene caused Zhong Yi to frown. Could it be that the Heavenly Sword sect was going to go back on their words? The 3 major powers of the Sword Reverence City had maintained a balance of power for far too many years. None of them dared to say that they would be able to devour the other 2. And because the 3 powers were still divided into different levels, 2 of them wouldn't join forces to annihilate the other 2. Once the third party was annihilated, the weaker of the two remaining powers would be in danger. It was precisely because of this that this balance had always been maintained. Brother Zong, there are some things I have to remind you. If it was in the past, if our Zong clan won, the sword range would belong to us for the next 10 years. But today's battle is merely a formality. As for the control of the sword range, Brother Zong can forget about it. Jian Huio faintly spoke, his words causing expressions of interest to appear on the faces of the spectators. If the Heavenly Sword sect violated the rules, it would undoubtedly be a provocation to the Zong clan. Sect leader Jian, do you think that the Heavenly Sword sect is so powerful that they can disregard the existence of my Zong clan? Zong Yi's voice was filled with coldness, yet Jian Huio acted as though he didn't hear it. He coldly laughed. It's not my Heavenly Sword sect. There are others who wish to mine the sword range. These people are the esteemed guests of my Heavenly Sword sect. I'm advising you now because it's for the good of Brother Zong. Is that so? In that case, Zong, would like to ask, who is the one who wishes to mine the sword range? Zong Yi stared at Jian Huio calmly. At this moment, a person behind Jian Huio spoke. Before this person had been standing at the very back with his eyes closed in meditation, completely unremarkable. Only now did the spectators discover that this person's dressing was completely different from those from the Heavenly Sword sect. He was clad in luxurious golden robes, and an intense sense of arrogance could be seen on his face. His entire person exuded a sense of sharpness. This person walked out and inclined his head slightly, staring at Zong Yi as he casually stated, there was originally no need for this battle. It's just that Jian Huio wanted to follow the rules set by the previous generations, so I allowed it. But no matter what the ending is, for the next 10 years, the rights to mine the sword range shall still belong to the Heavenly Sword sect. Outsiders are not allowed to interfere. The tone of this luxuriously dressed middle-aged man was filled with arrogance, leaving no room for doubt. The other two major powers of the sword-reverent city, regardless of the Zong clan or the Li clan, had no qualifications to doubt him. If that's the case, why do you still want to follow the rules set by the previous generations? How laughable! Zong Yi faintly spoke. Dare I ask who you are? You don't need to know. The middle-aged man continued. As for the battle earlier, it was Jian Huio who insisted on sending out the members of his Heavenly Sword sect. If I wanted to lead the battle, it would be a piece of cake. How would you, Sword's son, have a chance to win? Is that so? Zong Yi countered with a question. Since you put it this way, I, Zong, would like to see for myself how the first-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns you sent would be able to defeat the Sword son of my Zong clan. If my Zong clan loses this battle, I will immediately retreat without saying a single word. Not only that, my Zong clan will gift you with 100,000 fourth-layer Yuan meteor stones. How about it? Emichim? Upon hearing Zong Yi's words, the countenances of the crowd stiffened. What a strong self-confidence. Zong Yi didn't even inquire about the identity of his opponent, yet he dared to act so domineeringly. Most probably, he was from a major power that came from outside. But since the middle-aged man said that he could easily lead the battle, Zong Yi wanted to see who would be able to defeat the Sword son of the Zong clan. Those from the Zong clan were all stunned. Zong Yi was extremely confident in his Sword son, Qin Wen. If they knew that their Sword son was the top ranker in the Heavenly Fate rankings, and had dominated the demon-level geniuses of Grand Xia when he was at the 9th level of Yuanfu, they would also be as confident as Zong Yi. Since he was invincible at the same level as him during the Heavenly Fate rankings, who would be able to defeat him now that he was at the first level of Heavenly Dipper? The middle-aged man furrowed his brows. He was the one who spoke first, yet Zong Yi made use of his words to issue a challenge. Not only that, Zong Yi also offered such a huge bet. If he didn't accept it, it would undoubtedly be akin to smacking his own face. 100,000 Yuan meteor stones, what a huge bet. The middle-aged man coldly laughed. Since this is the case, I will accept it. What would happen if your subordinate is defeated? Zong Yi didn't show any signs of anger, he was extremely calm. Defeated? The middle-aged man had never imagined that in the sword-reverent city, With a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, there would be someone who could defeat the Heavens Chosen of the Wang clan, Wang Ju. Although Wang Ju was defeated in the Heavenly Fate rankings and had encountered many demon-level geniuses, it was still undeniable that he was extremely powerful. After stepping into Heavenly Dipper, he was still a target to be nurtured. How could there be anyone in the Sword Reverend City who could be his opponent? If the middle-aged man had gone to the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia to witness the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings, he wouldn't have thought this way. Right now, the situation in Grand Xia was extremely chaotic. The Venerate Heavens sect had spread word that the fate of Grand Xia was changing. Hence, the Wang clan had no choice but to make preparations. Hence, they came to the Sword Reverend City, which was located extremely far away from the war continent. They were prepared to excavate the sword range, and at the same time, try their best to see if they could bring the mysterious demon sword away with them. If my subordinate is defeated, he will no longer touch the sword range and will leave immediately. Also, gift me 100,000 yuan meteor stones. The middle-aged man coldly laughed. 100,000 yuan meteor stones was definitely an astronomical sum. Since the other party wanted to gift it to him, why wouldn't he accept it? Not only that, there was no need for him to hand over the 100,000 yuan meteor stones to the Wang clan. This was precisely the reason why he agreed to this battle. If not, he wouldn't even bother with Zhong Yi. Immediately head to the Heavenly Sword sect and summon the descendants of my Wang clan. We will excavate the sword range in advance. The middle-aged man faintly spoke. Jian Wuyo nodded his head and turned his head to instruct one of his subordinates. Momentarily, the silhouette of that person soared through the air, instantly flying towards the direction of the Sword Reverend City. Upon seeing this scene, the spectators didn't depart but chose to wait patiently instead. They also wanted to see who this imposing middle-aged man was exactly. To think that even the Heavenly Sword sect would bow their heads in submission to him. Those from the Zhong clan were all extremely nervous. 100,000 fourth-layer yuan meteor stones. This sum was simply too terrifying. Clan Lord Zhong Yi had actually placed so much pressure on the Sword Sun. How could they not feel a sense of suffocation in their hearts? But if their Zhong clan retreated just like that, where would they put their face? For the sake of face, for the sake of the sword range, Clan Lord Zhong Yi would make such a decision. Now, it all depended on Qin Wenyin. The spectators waited for a period of time. Above the precipice, whistling sounds could be heard as a terrifyingly sharp intent gushed over. Inclining their heads, they saw another group of terrifying experts descending upon the precipice. These people weren't all riding on flying swords. They were all using various innate techniques and stopped in the air. Their sharp gazes turned downwards, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble in fear. These young men all have gazes as sharp as blades. They are all extraordinary characters, and any one of them exudes a fearsome aura, giving off a feeling of invincibility. As for those elders, just a single glance from them is enough to pierce through the minds of the spectators. The hearts of the spectators pounded as they descended. The middle-aged man in luxurious robes had an arrogant smile on his face as he stared at Zhong Yi. Daring to gamble with my Wang clan? Zhong clan of the Sword Reverend City, I truly admire your courage. Wang clan. Expressions of contemplation appeared on the faces of the spectators. Abruptly, a terrifying light gleamed in their eyes. The Sword Reverend City was located in the central region of Grand Xia, and the closest city to it was none other than the War Continent. Claiming to be from the Wang clan, such an arrogant power, it could only be the Wang clan of the War Continent. A transcendent power. Not only that, it's one of the 9 strongest transcendent powers. The hearts of the spectators trembled. No wonder this man was so arrogant. If the Zhong clan wanted to gamble with the Wang clan, how could they not lose? Those from the Zhong clan felt their hearts trembling as their countenances turned pale. They had all thought that a powerful power had arrived, but they didn't expect that this power would be the Wang clan of the War Continent. Chapter 412. A year ago, in Ginku, in the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, although no one from the Sword Reverence City participated in the ranking battle, they had all heard of the results of the battle. A Heaven's Chosen, Qin Wendian, appeared out of nowhere, defeating the demon-level genius of the great Solar Qin clan, Chen Wang, as well as the Dark Horse Si Qiong. He even killed the Heaven's Chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall, Zhan Qin, becoming the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Qin Wenyan used his fame as the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings to tell the world that he and Mo Qingqing were a match made in heaven. This year's Heavenly Fate rankings battle was known as the strongest in 1,000 years. Wang Ju, who was once ranked number 6 on the Heavenly Fate ranking, didn't even manage to enter the top 10. However, it couldn't be said that Wang Ju's strength was lacking, it was just that the Heavenly Fate rankings this time around were simply too strong. After the Heavenly Fate rankings, those ranked at the top all broke through to Heavenly Dipper. Wang Ju of the War Continent was no exception. As a Heaven's Chosen of the Wang clan, one could very well imagine how strong his combat prowess was. If he were to enter the Sword Reverence City in the future, he would definitely be able to dominate everyone. Moreover, what kind of power is the Wang family of War State? Even if Wang Ju doesn't come out, the other Heavenly Dipper Realm first stage people will not be weak? And at this moment, outside the Sword Reverence City, the sect leader of the Zong clan, Zong Yi, actually issued a wager of 100,000 yuan meteor stones to the Wang clan. Wang Ju. The middle-aged man lifted his head and looked at a young man in the air. Wang Ju, it's really Wang Ju. The countenances of those from the Zong clan all turned incredibly unsightly to behold. As for those from the Heavenly Sword sect, they were still laughing coldly. The Sword Son of the Zong clan from the Sword Reverence City actually issued a bet of 100,000 yuan meteor stones to our Wang clan. You, go and tell him, there's always a sky beyond a sky. The middle-aged man in luxurious robes spoke. Wang Ju's countenance was calm. He heard that there were demon swords in this place and thus decided to come here to take a look. He wanted to see if there was anything special about this sword range. Qin Wenyan would always remember his defeat in the Heavenly Fate rankings, constantly reminding himself that he had to grow stronger. And now, there was actually a major power challenging him in the Sword Reverence City. This caused a cold light to flicker in his eyes. Since Wang Ju is here, I think Brother Zong should just give up the sword range and hand over the Yuan meteor stones before leaving this place. Zong Yi's countenance was as calm as ever. He wasn't worried about the outcome of this battle. What he was thinking in his heart was that his opponent was someone from the Wang clan of the War Continent. Even if they won this battle, would they give up on the sword range? I'm afraid it'll be difficult. Looking at the Wang family's current situation, it seemed like they wouldn't rest until they obtained the sword range. I, Zong, am willing to take a step back and forget about this battle. My Zong clan will work together with the Wang clan to mine the sword range. In addition, I will pay half of the promised Yuan meteor stones. How about it? Zong Yi contemplated for a moment before he spoke, taking a step back. However, the other party wouldn't think this way. The middle-aged man coldly laughed. Now that you know you're no match for me, you want to regret your decision? How laughable. Where is the sword son of the Zong clan? Qin Wenyan was currently among the crowd of people from the Zong clan. He left the ancient kingdom and came to the Sword Reverence City because he didn't want to be discovered. But who would have thought that he would actually encounter people from the Zong clan here? However, at this moment, since they had already met, there was no point in running away. Only to see his silhouette slowly walking out, and in an instant he landed on the stone platform. Staring at his back view, the members of the Zong clan couldn't help but sigh silently. Although Qin Wenyan had defeated the Sword Son of the Li clan and the Heavenly Sword sect, it would be extremely difficult for him to defeat Wang Ju of the Wang clan. At this moment, Qin Wenyan stood with his hands clasped behind his back as he slowly inclined his head, staring at Wang Ju. Instantly, Wang Ju's countenance flickered with a terrifying sharpness, while Wang Xiao, who was standing behind him, radiated a sharpness as well. It's him! Wang Ju had never imagined that he would encounter Qin Wenyan here. The Sword Son of the Sword Reverence City? This identity was truly well disguised. A few months ago, Ouyang Guangxing had returned to the Ouyang aristocrat clan, while Bai Qing had returned to the Mystic Moon sect. This incident had shocked the various transcendent powers. The great Solar Qin clan and the other transcendent powers of Ginkgo were still encircling the ancient kingdom, yet Qin Wenyan had actually left. This was akin to a slap to the face of the great Solar Qin clan. Because of this, the great Solar Qin clan was infuriated and had even issued an order to capture Qin Wenyan. How would they be able to find him? Wang Ju stood at his original location, not stepping onto the platform. Although he was extremely confident in his own strength, he had to admit that he didn't have the ability to win against someone who had once fought in the heavenly fate rankings. The battle between Qin Wenyan, Chen Wang and Si Qiong was still vivid in his mind. Qin Wenyan's combat prowess had no weaknesses. Now that he had stepped into Heavenly Dipper, how strong would he be? Most probably, the astral war beasts he could summon would be able to dominate opponents at the same level as him. Wang Ju. The middle-aged man inclined his head, calling out to Wang Ju, who was still standing in the air. Those from the Heavenly Sword sect and Zong clan were all bewildered. This Wang Ju was staring at Qin Wenyan, yet he didn't move an inch. In his eyes, an intense fear could be seen. A mere Zong clan from the Sword Reverend City, what qualifications do they have to negotiate with my Wang clan? Let alone a battle. Uncle, tell them to scram. Wang Xiao didn't want Wang Ju to feel awkward as he spoke. The middle-aged man frowned. He didn't understand. 800,000 yuan meteor stones were delivered to my doorstep. How can I refuse? That's right, this Zong clan doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. Honorable nephew Wang Ju should teach brother Zong how to conduct himself. Jian Wuyo coldly laughed. However, he only saw Wang Ju coldly glancing at him, causing a strange expression to appear on Jian Wuyo's face. There seemed to be something wrong with Wang Ju's gaze. Shifting his gaze over, Wang Ju stared at Qin Wenyan as he coldly stated, "The Chen clan is searching for you everywhere. What would they do if they knew you were here?" Imichem? Upon hearing Wang Ju's words, the eyes of the crowd froze. Wang Ju was actually acquainted with the sword son of the Zong clan? Fight or not? Qin Wenyan inclined his head, his gaze as sharp as a sword, landing on Wang Ju. That gaze caused Wang Ju's heart to tremble. Back then, during the ranking battle on the Vermilion Bird Arena platform, this was the same gaze he used to kill Zhang Qin, defeat Chen Wang and Si Qiong. Wang Ju didn't reply. The middle-aged man's brows furrowed even more tightly as he asked, "Who is this person?" Qin Wenyan. Wang Ju stared at Qin Wenyan as he spat out these three words. Momentarily, the middle-aged man's countenance stiffened as a terrifying light flickered in his eyes. Number 1 on the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan? The countenances of those from the Zong clan stiffened. Could it be that the Sword Son's real name wasn't Qin Wenyan, but Qin Wenyan? Some of the more knowledgeable ones involuntarily exclaimed, "Last year, the one who defeated Chen Wang from the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wenyan." As the sound of this voice faded, the crowd inclined their heads and stared at the silhouette of the young man standing on the stone platform. Their countenances stiffened. This Qin Wenyan, was that Qin Wenyan? He was the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings? And when they glanced at Wang Ju, he didn't even dare to take half a step forward upon seeing Qin Wenyan. Those from the Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect were all dumbfounded. No wonder Zhong Yi was so confident he was actually Qin Wenyan. This man had once dominated the heavenly fate rankings with no opponents at the same cultivation level as him. The gazes of those from the Zong clan burned with passion as they stared at the back view of Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan merely stood there casually, yet the heavens chosen from the Wang clan of the War Continent didn't even dare to take a single step forward. Even if you were a heavens chosen, you didn't even have the courage to fight. Because if you fought, you would definitely lose. The top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings has actually been in my Zong clan all this time, and I actually didn't know him. A young man from the Zong clan sighed, his countenance filled with excitement. He had never imagined that he would be able to come into contact with the legendary top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings. At this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette seemed to grow taller and taller. Just by standing there, he was akin to a legend. He was the same as Hua Taishu back then, standing at the peak of Yuanfu, the pinnacle of Grand Xia. This person actually appeared in the Zong clan, becoming the sword son of the Zong clan. You already knew? The middle-aged man stared at Zong Yi, his countenance cold. I'm only asking you this. Does the bet still count? Zong Yi didn't reply. Since Qin Wenyan had already stepped out, it didn't matter if he replied or not. The him now, instead, was domineering as he stared at the middle-aged man. If I say it counts, do you dare to accept it? The middle-aged man stared at Zong Yi. Accept. Zong Yi calmly stared back at the middle-aged man. Are you sure? The middle-aged man asked again. His tone had already turned exceptionally cold. I'm sure. Zong Yi's countenance was as calm as ever as he calmly replied. At this instant, the middle-aged man laughed as he waved his hands. Very well, since you accept it, I shall gift this sword range to you. In addition, I will send someone to the war continent to prepare 100,000 yuan meteor stones. Just you wait. As the sound of his voice faded, the silhouette of the middle-aged man soared through the air, directly departing the area. Those from the Wang clan of the war continent all followed suit. Jian Wuyo coldly laughed as he glanced at Zong Yi. Brother Zong's decision this time around isn't very wise. Let's hope that your Zong clan will be able to obtain this sword range. As the sound of his voice faded, those from the Heavenly Sword sect also departed. Those from the Li clan all had expressions of schadenfreude on their faces. Seems like there would be a good show to watch in the Sword Reverend City. Very swiftly, only those from the Zong clan remained at the bottom of the precipice. The Heavenly Sword sect had actually evacuated the guards of the sword range. However, they all understood that this was only temporary. How could the transcendent power, the Wang clan, give up so easily? Leaving aside the 100,000 yuan meteor stones and the sword range, even the safety of their Zong clan would have to be reconsidered. Qin Wenyan furrowed his brows. The Wang clan didn't dare to make a move because they weren't strong enough. Not only that, the Wang clan knew that he had the divine steel in his possession during the heavenly fate rankings. With the divine steel in his hands, the Wang clan would definitely feel trepidation in their hearts. After all, that was the complete divine steel. However, the Wang clan didn't say a single word about it and directly departed. Naturally, they were heading to the war continent to mobilize their experts. They couldn't stay in the Sword Reverence City any longer. Qin Wentian also didn't expect that he would encounter the Wang clan here. Turning back, Qin Wenyan walked to the side of Zong Yi as he spoke. I've implicated Uncle Zong. Since I've already made up my mind, why should I be afraid of the consequences? Zong Yi lightly spoke, patting Qin Wenyan on his shoulder as he smiled. My blood is still boiling. Qin Wenyan felt his heart heating up as a smile appeared on his face. After which, Zong Yi turned and stared at the members of the Zong clan as he commanded, immediately return to the clan and hold a clan meeting. Since they had already thought of the consequences, the Zong clan naturally had to make the necessary preparations. Everyone nodded their heads as they cast a deep glance at Qin Wenyan. After which, their silhouettes flickered as they departed the area. That very day, the youths of the Zong clan, as well as the weaker females and children, all left the Sword Reverence City through the teleportation array. Only then did the members of the Zong clan discover that there was actually a teleportation array hidden in the Zong clan. A crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. The Zong clan was one of the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor. They would naturally leave a path of retreat for themselves. This teleportation array was something they had paid a huge price to hire a grandmaster who was proficient in spatial divine inscriptions to create. In a single day, the Zong clan left behind those who had the strength to fight. At the same time, they destroyed the teleportation array, cutting off any path of escape. After which, they set off for the sword range during the night. Evidently, the Zong clan was prepared to give up on the Sword Reverend City. Their ruthless methods caused Qin Wenyan to sigh in admiration at Zong Yi's boldness. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.